Members of council, if you could please be seated. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council study session for Monday, July 14th. We just have 2 study session items for tonight, with the first one taking place in council chambers. So I'm going to ask that we adjourn from this room and just head over to council chambers for testing of the new digital voting machines for council. All right, let's just adjourn to the council chambers. We'll be back at 6 o'clock for the second item for tonight. Thank you, everyone. All right. I think we're all set. Good evening, Stephanie.
Yes,
City Clerk
hello.
Carlile.
So this is Bronnie De Leon from IT. So the City Clerk's Office and IT Department have collaboratively worked to get us back to a digital voting system. Some of you may remember the old buttons on the dais, and then when we upgraded the system, that went away. And so we've been trying to get back to that. So we worked through a lot of options, and our current agenda management software allows us to do digital voting, and there's many perks to that. It automatically populates the minutes, things like that. So we chose to go that route for this. We've been working with our software to work out a few of the kinks, but we're excited to just walk you through the simplicity of the system, and then we will be available for questions. And then certainly at the end of today, if anybody's unclear, our goal was to maybe implement this by the next regular city council meeting next Monday, but we want to give you enough time to feel comfortable with the system. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one, individually, if you need more time, or we're happy to delay that as well. So we'll just kind of go through it. The biggest difference is that things will come to you on the small iPad that you see next to your monitor. So you've got like a lot of monitors going, but it's an iPad system. It's directly linked to the agenda. And then Bronnie, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, but
yeah, just the system itself is something that's already integrated in what we've been already using through iCompass. So, it's a feature that's already in iCompass. So we've already been using the iCompass system. Just because of the digital voting aspect of it, you do need to have an account that we've already put you in for and had it ready for you, ready to go. So all it's going to really require on your end is a push of a button when it comes to moving a motion, seconding a motion, or doing the final vote. When it comes to that voting aspect, really. There's not anything that can be done maliciously on that end. You can't go to anybody else's account. You can't alter the agenda. It's literally like you have been doing before. It just allows you to specifically vote because your name is then registered. Go ahead, Member Wright.
So when you said to first and second an agenda, normally we speak out. Do we now have to push a button to do that?
Yeah, so there'll be something that you'll push when you're ready to move to approve something. So there'll be a move, and then there'll be a second button that comes out. So we're working with the mayor on the flow of the meeting, how we want that to look, or if there's still an audio, like I move to approve as you push it. Sometimes people kind of do it at the same time, and so we've been working with the mayor just to kind of see how we want the flow of the meeting. But we're going to walk you through a whole test agenda on several motions so you can kind of see the system, and then we can kind of circle back around for any questions. Does that work?
Remind me again, City Clerk Carlile, I'm able to see who did the first and the second, correct?
You're able to see who moves it. The second goes directly into the vote, so you won't see who seconds for an announcement, but you would be able to announce who moved it. And that's something that we've been working with the software on to see if that's a feature or capability that would show. The nice thing is that everything shows. So if somebody is viewing the meeting online, live streaming it, they're going to see it all. They're not just only going to hear it, they're going to see it. And they're definitely going to see the results at the end, the fours, the ayes, the nays, the bar graph, if anybody abstained. So it's very visual, which I think will be helpful for our viewers. Yep, we've also worked it so you'll be able to see where we're at on the agenda. People in the audience will be able to see the agenda. And then as the results populate, you're going to see them on your screen, down here, up there, and people online will see it as well.
Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you. So is there a reason that we're going to push button for the motion and the second?
It's just part of the system. It's a nice way for people to be able to do that. We can do anything manually. So if there is consensus with council that you don't want that part of it and you still want to do, call that out, I can manually click that on my end. And then you guys can just see the vote. We kind of work this out how you want it to be. But we were hoping to just utilize all the features, but we certainly can do what people agreed to do.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, I think probably we have to try this first, because it may be that we want to go back to verbal on the motion and the second.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the mayor and I were just talking when we stopped doing the old way and went to the manual way we do it now. It took us a little bit. It was a little clunky at first, and I suspect that's how it'll be, but we can certainly see how the flow of the meeting goes. The other thing is, there are meetings where we have lots of amendments. We're going to pre-populate what we anticipate motions to be. Amendments, we would just need to take a quick pause where we could throw that in there so that can then come through the system for you to vote on as well. So there'll just be a couple of nuances that we'll just have to adjust of a new way of doing the votes. But we can create workarounds for how we want that to flow.
Member Wright and then Mayor.
Thank you. So the folks at home, is it going to be a split screen type of view, or how are they going to see things? Is it going to be a normal view, and then when it comes to a vote, you'll pop it up? Or...
It kind of just goes over what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So my question is about amendments, or occasionally we'll have a primary motion that's not on there. We'll still do a motion and a second manually, or will we just say those and then you'll type them in, then we can vote on it? Or
for the amendment?
Yeah, if it was an amendment or a primary motion that was different than what's on the agenda.
Yeah, so I think that as we think about how the meeting would flow, so if you would say, okay, I move to amend, then I would probably manually click that you've moved. I would throw in just a brief thing that says what the amendment would be, and then it would be in there and we could do a manual second, and then you could digitally vote.
Okay.
I think that might be best for amendments.
Yeah, because we talked about it for like the motion to postpone to date uncertain and stuff like that. That's going to pop up instead of motion to approve.
Can you repeat
The
that?
motion to, like, if it was any other motion than just a motion to approve, right?
Yeah,
So if it was to postpone to date uncertain,
yes.
that's going to get typed in by you.
Correct.
And then it's going to be viewable on our
And then
screen.
I can resend it out
Yeah.
for a vote. So, and we'll walk you through it so you kind of see the flow and how it comes to you on the iPad. And then the other thing I want to mention is for anybody who ends up perhaps joining virtually, then you would just utilize your laptop and you would have all the same features. We've tested it numerous times with people online versus at the dais so it's all integrated, and so anybody can participate virtually as well. But we can always do everything manually. So we can always have that as a fallback. If somebody changes their mind on a vote, I can manually change that. I mean, it's very intuitive and easy to do on my end.
So Stephanie, remind me again, what did we decide on the motion, on the consent agenda items? Because obviously sometimes consent agenda items do get pulled.
Mm-hmm.
Remind me again, do you then go into the system and then just state
so
the
then we
ones?
would just go back up to that item, and then we would have, motion to approve agenda item blank,
Uh-huh.
and then you could address
Okay.
it then.
All right.
And when we pre-populate the minutes, we'll kind of put some little placeholders in that we can grab quickly and easily, just
Okay.
to keep the flow of the meeting going. It's going to be it's definitely more cumbersome on our end. Our hope is that it's just very simple on your end, just pushing those buttons. We just have a lot more pre-work for it and then clean up afterwards.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
One question I have about the screen here is, how do I know that it knows it's me, like it's signed in as me rather than somebody else? Is there a way to check and make sure?
The only way to do that would be for us to sign you out, and then sign back in. But unfortunately, we've already pre-populated that password so that it can be ready for everyone when you just come in.
Yeah.
And this is where we struggled, because we know people just get here, right, kind of sometimes as the meeting starts. We can change that as well. If you prefer to have you personally signing in and your own password specific, I got the impression that people were just using this as like the public link, not necessarily signing in to use iCompass. But we can change that too. We were thinking of the flow of the meeting and just having, you specifically signed in, but yes.
Okay, when you vote, will it say, I guess we're going to test it out. So
Yes, let's walk through it, and then let's do some questions at the end after you've seen the system a little bit.
Remember, right, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one more. So you're saying this is a lot more work for the clerk's office at the front end and the back end, and apparently IT also. Why are we moving this to this then? Because I don't know the way council's
it's
done
maybe
this.
not more work. It's just a difference of the work. When we've been doing it manually, we then take all those manual things that we've done, and then we have to put them in. So really, it's not a difference. It's just we're going to have to preload everything just to keep the flow of the meeting so it can come to you quickly. Right now, we just manually take it all down, and then we go add it into the system on the back end. So it's really not necessarily more work. It's just a difference of when we do that.
Okay.
And this is something that we heard from council members that they wanted to kind of get back to. So we've had a goal to really try to find a solution to get us back to digital voting.
Okay, and I could see the fairness of how it's done all at once. I can understand that.
I want you guys to kind of see and feel and touch and see what it would look like, and then we can kind of go from there. And certainly, if we're not ready to roll it out, we can take your input and do what we need to do to make that right. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any further questions, so.
Okay. I'm gonna be back there if that's okay.
Okay.
Help you out.
Watching us? Okay, cool. So Stephanie, do you want me to just act as this is a regular meeting, or?
So I just want to make sure you can all see that we're on kind of that first item of the meeting. So it's kind of highlighted so you can see where we're at on the agenda.
One thing I'd like to add, sorry. In the agenda at the top right, you're gonna see a little small green check mark. That has to be present and visible during the time that you're voting, or else there's a problem maybe on the signing in portion or something on the back end that didn't go correctly. So that indicates to us that you are ready to vote when it comes to a voting session.
It was top left corner, right? Oh, I see it on the top left, right underneath the agenda.
It's very tiny.
Yeah. Okay.
So the visual you're seeing on your iPad as well, the agenda piece is very small, but if you are following along on the agenda, you'll be able to click the agenda links, and the right side of the screen will pull up the portions of the agenda, the attachments that we put in the agendas. So that whole right side of your screen, it's large, but that would show any attachments, links that are there if you want to see them. No, we're working with them on that because I'm very picky visually. But I just want to walk you through a couple and we'll go from there. So I think we're doing the meeting. We're getting to a place where the mayor is ready to take a motion. So
All right.
Mayor, what would you
All right, perfect. Yeah, so I guess we are now on agenda item 1. So the minutes of the last meeting. Any changes to the minutes? If not, can I get a motion?
Oh, yep. That's the one thing. It's easy to, no, it's okay. So I don't know if you all saw, but there was a green button to click move.
No.
And then there's a second.
I didn't get through my motion, Chelsea.
No.
So I see Chelsea moved, and I think that this is what we were discussing. So Chelsea moved the motion.
I don't even know where we have.
It was really quick. So, yeah.
Hey, why don't we, let's
put it back.
Let's do the second. Let's just go through the second
All
and
right.
then we'll.
I second.
Okay. Perfect. Please vote.
All right.
Mayor would
So,
say, Mayor,
yeah,
you would say,
I got a
please
first,
vote.
I got a second. Can we please vote?
Okay, the results populated. Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay.
So it displays up there and on your iPad as well. Yes.
For those of us who are on this side of the dais, can we see it on this screen so we know what the residents will see because this one's not working?
Well, so we strategically kept one for anything that displays.
Oh, and it's down
So
here too.
down here, is that what residents watching on YouTube see? They don't see us, they just see the agenda?
Mark, can you speak to that, please? What they would see on the feed?
When the vote tally shows like it is
Do
now.
you mind going to the, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I figure I know how to talk into the mic. When the vote tally shows, that's what we'll cut to in the YouTube feed, and it would be that display that you're seeing there. That will register for 10 seconds, and then we'll come back out.
Great,
Is what we're gonna.
And you will
that was-
see it on your iPad.
Yes.
I can see it, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
I know a lot of our residents like listen to the YouTube while they do dishes. We have a lot of visually impaired residents who listen but can't follow along visually. Will we ever read out the votes, or they will have to see them here?
We would just announce the 5 ayes and 2 nays. And I'm going back to how
Yeah,
we
I'm sorry, I
used
was
to
on
do
Taco
it,
Bell, so that's what I'm doing,
but
asking.
certainly.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a decision we can make if we want the city clerk to read out the I guess, yeah, in this case, the 2 against, right?
Mhm.
In that
Yeah.
instance, I think that that's
I mean,
one option.
you can see it. So if we needed to read that out, or perhaps just go back to manual
Yeah.
voting.
Well, also, because we talked about this when we came and tested about a month ago, right? That I was thinking that I would still read out who motioned for it.
Yeah.
Read out that name. I can't see the second because I didn't see who the second was on this one, but I would just say it was moved by, Mayor Pro Tem. And then I could just say, and we have a second.
Yes.
And then move on from there.
Yes. That's another request we've put in.
Go ahead, Kim.
And maybe that's why it'd be best if you say who, as
moved
we're
it.
doing it, who moved, who second, and then we vote. And then Stephanie says, the 5 yeas, the 2 nays, just like she always has in a vote.
Yeah. Okay.
Because otherwise, I think we're just slowing the whole process down.
I think also, Chelsea, going back to that question, is we used to notate if there were nays, who the nays were. I mean, do you feel like that would help? We could go back to that as well, where It's 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Councilmember Blank and Councilmember Blank.
If we don't think that's too cumbersome, I think that offers a level of detail for
Okay.
those who are just
Yeah.
listening. The other thing is, I know in Robert's Rules of Order, I think there's the opportunity to call for a voice vote. People actually have to voice their vote, but I'm not sure if I have that correct. That might have been a state legislative thing specifically.
I am not familiar with
Okay,
that.
that's okay, thanks.
Member Russell, did you have a question? I saw your light on.
No, I like Stephanie going back and just reading what it is that she normally said before.
So just notating the nays, correct? If
Right,
there are any.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. All right, let's go through the second item. And so,
Question before we.
yeah, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I feel like we need to make a decision whether we're gonna announce that I move as we're pushing it, or we're just going to push the button and you're gonna announce it.
I thought I was going to announce it, but I'd leave it to council if they would.
Well,
because you wouldn't know whether or not you got the
We're all
the
going to
move.
push it.
Because everybody may be pushing it at the same time. So that's why
Whoever's quickest.
I will be able to see who moved it. So that's why I was thinking I will announce it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Go ahead,
That'll
Member
speed
Russell.
up the meet. That'd be the most efficient.
Yeah. Go ahead, Member Russell.
But I do have a question. I think sometimes it gives people an opportunity to decide whether they want to move this or not. Whereas if we're doing it automatically, the first person that hits the button could win all the time.
Just the person that is quickest would move it, is basically what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Well, no, but
No,
what
hold on,
there
everyone.
are,
Yep.
it's not a competition. There are some people just push the button and it's over.
Right.
And there's been no discussion or anything.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. So no, actually, that was the thing that we kind of jumped on the motion here before I actually read it out. I would like to prefer to read it out first before that block pops up.
okay. And that's on my end. So I will wait for you
Yeah.
to say, I will take a motion to approve. I will click send for votes, and then it will pop up. And that's something we were trying to figure out on our end when the appropriate timing was, whether it should be sitting there ready for a motion. But then even when we were testing, we would accidentally click it too fast. So
Okay.
maybe that would alleviate that as well.
So I know we only have about 7 or 8 minutes left. Let's
let's
do
do
another motion, and then
Yep.
we'll also do a motion to an amendment to the motion as well to kind of practice it. So, all right. So moving on to agenda item 2A.
And that's,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so something else.
Do you mind turning on your screen?
Out.
You just have to press the X to get once you're done viewing the results, you would just click the X.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
or else it just stays there displayed. Because
Until
again,
the
the
next-
iPad portion of it is just for you to click for the move, the second, and the votes.
Okay.
So it's always displaying there. And then if there is another agenda item where we do have to vote, it automatically goes to the next.
Okay.
Mhm. But it does stay up there.
You could tell who uses.
And then what happens if you close it and we're really not done yet?
There is an option at the bottom that allows you to open it back up again. So it kind of like minimizes it, but you
Okay.
can still see it. But if the motion goes and gets sent by Stephanie again, it will pop back up on its own.
Does anybody want to try that on this next motion just to?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And if you don't want to exit out, it can just stay there. And then the next time I click send for votes, it'll take it off and put the new thing up too. So it's a preference.
All right, perfect. Any questions before I ask for another motion? All right. All right, moving on to 2A. I'm looking for a motion to approve digital voting test number 1. Has it popped up? Now it has.
There's a delay.
So I have a move. So Mayor Pro Tem moved the motion, and I have a second as well. All right, any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote? Actually, I'm going to X out of it. So where did it go once I X'd out of it?
To be towards the bottom.
Bronny, can you go back there, please?
Well, I wanted to test it.
Try seeing right here.
Oh, agenda?
Yeah, it should be the agenda.
No.
There we go.
Can you pop it back up, Stephanie, because it's not popping up on my side. So I know, so we're trying to get the voting screen. So when I X'd out before voting, it doesn't show that I voted, correct, Stephanie?
Correct.
Can you pop it back up because it's not popping up on my side? So if I try to X out on the vote, oh, let me see, let me minimize this.
What do you see?
Refreshed on mine.
Did it? Mine did not.
It says, show the votes, right?
I clicked send for votes again because he hasn't voted.
Okay, so can you send it again? Let's see.
I did.
not send it.
There's a
No.
bit delay.
Nothing yet. So that seems to be one bug that isn't popping up. So if I X out on the vote, it doesn't show up.
And you send it, you send it, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure, we can start over and do it again. Now everybody would need to revote.
Okay. So we have the first and the second. All right, can we please vote?
Let the record show 4 ayes and 2 nays.
Oh, everybody changed their mind. Except for me.
Yeah, you abstained.
Oh, you abstained.
Oh, a bunch of people abstained last time. They changed
Okay.
their minds.
All right, perfect. So that is,
In that portion, we just have to go back to the vote.
okay.
Yes, Chelsea.
Is it possible, Stephanie, for you also not to push it to vote until the mayor says, I call for a vote? Because I do think sometimes, like, when it pops up, it's like this instinct of, I need to vote. But if we actually do want to have discussion, I think it's good to make sure we have like a formal pause.
Right.
So once it's moved and seconded, it automatically goes to a vote.
But you're pushing the item because I think what you're saying, you still want to have
Any comments?
yeah,
And
Because
wait a
sometimes
second.
yeah.
people change their votes in those moments.
Yeah,
And
we have
I would
the
hate to vote
discussion.
prematurely and then be like, can we change our vote? I mean,
Well, that's why I think that you would wait for the mayor to say, please vote. So just motion second.
No, but we would like for you.
I think she's saying that's not possible.
Oh,
to
so that's not
delay the
possible.
vote.
Okay.
It's automatic. It'll go to that screen. I can't maneuver that on my
Okay.
end.
All right.
So that's,
But
Go ahead, Member Russell.
if we do a verbal motion and a verbal second, then it wouldn't necessarily automatically populate. Or
Right.
Let's try this one right here. Let's do that again.
Should we go to the second one?
I'm going to go to this next one. Okay.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 2B.
I will move and second manually.
Okay. So I'm asking for a motion to move voting test number 2.
so moved.
Second.
Thank
I'll
you,
take the
Member
second.
Russell, and a second by Member Ward. All right. Any further comments?
we have two.
All right. Seeing none. Yeah. Tina, blah, 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 blah. Can we please vote?
Okay. So that took care of that.
So you got Russell and, well, I don't see it yet, but let's go ahead and vote for it.
Actually, for this thing.
So that's the workaround. If you want me to manually do the move in second, and then I can wait until it's time and then just send the votes.
But I'm noticing that this screen doesn't actually tell you that Rita was the first and,
Well, you
Steve
would
was
just
the
do it
second.
how you currently do it.
yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Does it? Where do you see it?
Right here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's on
Okay,
there.
perfect. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But
Yep.
some of the votes showed up early and then more were added.
Yeah, I
later.
saw that too.
It's
Yeah.
as people push their button. And we've asked them to just wait and then populate them all at once.
Yeah.
But it's as they push their button, it shows up.
Does anybody want to try one more where we make an amendment? Yes? Okay. All right, let's set up the next one, Stephanie.
Okay. And are we doing a manual motion in second?
I like it that way.
Yeah, okay, so now moving on to agenda item 3A. Can I get a motion to approve digital voting test number 3?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Wright. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Ward. All right, any further comments? Actually, so
This is when
go ahead,
Tasha
member,
said-
yeah. Member
I
Wright,
have
do you want to
I
go,
have an amendment.
do you want, member Noonan-Camp, if you want to make a motion to amend?
Yes, I would like to amend the resolution from test 3 to test 4.
All right, thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, member Prang. All right, city clerk, any questions on that amendment? Any further comments?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sending for vote.
Okay. All
On the amendment?
Seeing no further comments, we have a motion to amend. No further comments, can we please vote? But there you would actually see a little bit, you're gonna see more detail than just motion to amend. You may
Yes.
say motion to amend.
Agenda
3 to
item
4 or
blank,
whatever.
and then I'll put a little
Okay.
couple keywords of what the amendment would entail.
It is not taken my. Oh.
Did it work?
I don't have faith now, I'm sorry.
They need that too.
Okay, so the amendment passed,
All right.
and then we would go
so-
back to the original.
All right, and so any further questions? All right, so we have a motion or any other amendments? If not, can we please vote on the motion as amended? There we go. So the public does not see it until everybody has voted.
Correct.
Okay. All right, because yeah, I could see when it all moved. All right, everyone, any questions? Go ahead, member Pray.
Quick question. So did you say amend it to number 4? So, but we don't see that in this.
Well, we did the
in-
amendment, and then we went back and I added as amended.
Oh, as amended.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Never mind.
There wasn't any further detail on that one. That was added by the city clerk in that example. But go ahead.
The one question that I have is, in these last two, it kind of populated for us as people vote.
Yep.
And I thought the ideal goal of this was that if everybody votes at the same time, we wouldn't know how
Right.
the rest of the, I mean, it would be better for it to populate for the citizens and not for us.
Right. But I think that's something that can't be fixed at this moment in time, right? But I agree with you, member Russell. I think not seeing who voted,
Blind voting.
yeah, would be preferable until all
We
said and done.
we have put in a request for that
Okay.
with the software.
So Stephanie, how easy would it be to, we're thinking about using this next Monday. If there's bugs or if there's something that just is throwing it off, can we just go back?
Yeah, we always have the ability. I will always have the manual vote sheets. We
Okay.
can always revert to that. If we're not ready and you want to do this again, we can wait. We've been testing this for months and working to try to work out some of the glitches with the capabilities, but now it's going to be the flow. And
Yeah.
that's something that's up to you. I want you all to feel comfortable before we implement it. We're not in any rush, but it is something that we were asked to do a long time ago, and we just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
we fulfilled that request.
I'm fine just trying it out on the 21st and just seeing, or next Monday, and then just playing it by ear in terms of how it's
Aren't
gonna.
you gone next Monday?
No, so I'm actually here, but I'll be gone the following Monday, but it won't be in use at that point.
And can you clarify, are we wanting to do the manual?
Yeah, I think the manual would be beneficial, where we read out the motion to approve and then the second. That would be my preference. Go ahead, member Newcamp.
That's my preference as well, but I wanted to check with you, Stephanie. Is that overly burdensome for the clerks?
Perhaps, but let's try it and
Mhm.
see. I just worry because I will need to be capturing, putting it in, because I can't send it until it's in, and then if there's amendments, I'm going to be typing that. So I just want to make sure that, and 2 people can't be doing it. So I'll have to work that out on my end, but I suppose we can work it out. And I think for me, it's just going to be a flow thing as well.
Well, then I would say let's test it that way, and then you can come back to us. if
Okay.
it becomes-
Yeah.
Perfect.
Go
So
ahead. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I kind of have the same feeling that I would like to continue doing the motion second, but I actually wonder if we wouldn't, once we got used to it, digitally doing the motion and second, if it wouldn't speed up the meeting, keep it a little more efficient, read it off more quickly, because we do tend to talk over each other or waiting for the mayor to call for a second, talking over the mayor. I feel like it's worth trying to do it the new way, and if we do that a couple of meetings, and we're not happy with the flow, then go back. But I feel like we're missing an opportunity here to pick up a little efficiency, and trying it out might be worth it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Go ahead, Member Wright, sorry.
My question is, do we have an idea of how big the agenda is next week? I didn't watch the manager.
I don't think it's
meeting.
very many. I think it's more just a lot of consent, just because we had a lot of first readings the last time around. So I don't recall there being too many, but that could be a determination on whether or not
Right. So if it's something that we just cursed it. If it's something that's not a huge agenda and a lot of topic type of thing,
right.
Maybe that's when we try it fully the new way.
Right.
If it's something that's heavy, I think the way we're doing it now is,
Okay.
Ease into it is my thought.
All right.
I really do think that once we get going, I mean, the only difference is that you're pushing a button versus me manually calling your name and you saying your vote. So I think as we go through it, it's going to be kind of second nature. Just
Okay.
take a little bit of time.
All right. So then I guess for Monday night, we'll try it depending on the size of the agenda. But then do we still want to be audible in terms of the first and the second? What is it how did you state it, Stephanie?
I'm sorry, what?
When the first and the second, we're going to be,
Well, I think I
it's going
heard
to be
two
manual, I
different
guess.
opinions.
That's what I'm asking is like, what is the preference of council? Because we've heard two different takes. Go ahead, Member Pring.
Yeah, I think there's enough hesitation to warrant doing it, people speaking it out. But I agree with Mayor Pro Tem, like there is some efficiencies built into this, and I wonder, once we're more comfortable with the actual voting pieces and all of that, I think that, Mayor, you are savvy enough to help manage us, and we can manage ourselves in the sense that if we've electronically moved and seconded, and then we need to have conversation,
Yeah.
we just know that we're going to pause for conversation, and you're going to hold off on hitting
Asking people to vote.
Right. So I think that we can work toward that. I would like to see us get.
Stephanie, if somebody inadvertently votes, it's easy for you to reset it?
Yes.
Okay.
And if somebody says, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that,"
Yeah.
I can change that manually on my end.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Member Ward.
I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Anderson. Actually, I think we're all mature, high-functioning adults. We can probably keep our fingers off the keypad until it's time to vote. And adding a step to prevent us from accidentally mashing keys doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. So you would prefer to not have the audible?
I don't want to add an extra step for the clerk.
Okay. All right. All right. So okay. Well, Tina, were you also kind of like leaning that way, or are you 50-50? Okay. So let's try without the additional step that we're adding to the city clerk next Monday night, but I will read out who had the first, and I won't be able to do the second, but I'll say somebody seconded it. Okay.
And we can adjust as we go.
Sounds good.
Just do it for a meeting or two.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
we'll figure out, it's like, all right, it didn't work. The mayor's not grasping it. So let's go back to the other way. Okay.
And it is not a competition.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Thank you
Any
for
further
working
comments
with
before we
us.
go back into the community room? All right, everyone. Thank you very much, City Clerk. Thank you very much. IT. All right, we're going back to the community room for the second agenda item of the night. All right, everyone. We are now, actually, are we? Yeah, I guess we're ready to begin. So we're moving on to agenda item 3, which is the Affordable Housing Goal Setting Workshop. Actually, I'm just going to ask council, did we want to take a break or just move into this? Because we did schedule a break for this item, so before this item. So we're good to begin? Okay. All right, so we have Deputy City Manager Tim Dodd, we have City Manager Shawn Lewis, we have Consultant Tasha Jones, we have Molly Fitzpatrick, and Lindsay, I can't recall your last name off the top of my head, Gorzowski. Thank you so much. Here along with council to participate in a facilitated discussion relative to considerations of the affordable housing goal and target setting. So Shawn, I will kick it off to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I will just give us a quick overview of our purpose tonight. You may remember from your April 14th session, Councilmember Noonenkamp first suggested kind of a goal setting, which was echoed by Member Prang, Member Russell, Member Wright, and I think maybe a couple others after that. So we wanted to, we've been working to set this session up for you to really work on those goals. And so the purpose tonight, first, we'll just review the existing things that we have going now, and then Molly will walk us through some of those other local and regional strategies that we are seeing in other parts of the state. And then really the meat of the session will be number 3, arriving at shared goals for Inglewood. So I'll introduce your facilitator for tonight, Tasha Jones. You may remember she was the facilitator for the Affordable Housing Task Force. She and her partner at the consulting firm that helped us with that. She has really focused her career on public-private partnerships, very much at the intersection of real estate development and community priorities. Worked a lot with the city of Denver in her role with, I believe it was Forest City Realty and in goal setting. So as you can see, she's worked in the private sector, particularly that development community, as well as working for Mile High United Way. So with that, I will turn this over to her.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me with you this evening. I want to talk with you through the agenda, but before we get started on the agenda, the reason why I'm so excited to be here is because I'm really big on follow through, and so having been part of that affordable housing task force, it feels like an honor to be back here with you for the facilitation. And for me, my passion around this work really does stem from what John touched on. You know, I spent 15 years working on that Central Park redevelopment with Forest City and Brookfield, and I had a lot of opportunity to present to council, keeping them updated and apprised of the progress that that developer was making on the affordable housing. Also, in my current work, I get to work with a lot of developers, home builders, architects, etc. But what I'm most proud of, what I sit at the intersection of, is serving on the board of Warren Village for the past 5 years, newly as their board chair. And so this passion around affordable housing for me is deep, and it's an honor to do this work. And so what we are going to be able to do today is just, we're going to use our time to really begin with some of the key presentations that John will provide some framing, Molly will provide some framing, as will Lindsay. And then we'll be able to have some reflection just on the role that the city has in housing, in affordable housing. And then we're going to move into some discussion. Like, this is going to be all hearing from you and how you want to prioritize how you see the city's role in supporting affordable housing, how you want to prioritize that, and really what kind of goals around affordable housing that you want to pursue. And we'll close out with some prioritization in the next steps. Okay. And then with that, I will turn it over to John, who will do some more framing.
Thank you, Tasha.
Okay.
You can hold on to that clicker. This is my only slide. Just going over some current Inglewood programs and policies. To start with, the Energy Efficiency Inglewood Grant, if you don't know, is a grant funded by our CDBG dollars, Community Development Block Grant. Those come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We usually can fund about, I believe, 12 of these projects, and they are for people that are in that 80% AMI or average median income and below. Our home repair improvement grant loan program is really for emergency repairs, is what we see most of this. Again, about 10 of those that we usually see every year. That's funded by Fund 46. That is a historic affordable housing fund that we have in the city's budget. That is a byproduct of when we actually had these programs, ran a lot of these programs ourselves. When homes sell or when they just no longer are considered affordable, then we get proceeds from that, which goes into your Fund 46. It's a very limited funding source and will run out at some point. But that's where we fund this program for, again, those safety improvements, emergency repairs. And then, of course, you know all about the code provisions. Most of you were on council when many of these were done as part of Code Next. Many of those aimed at some of that affordability, looking for particularly for smaller unit sizes. And then if you, a few of you were on city council when the city supported the low-income housing tax credits, or LIHTC project. That is the only one that we've had in the last 6 years or so, and it's called Trails at Lehigh. And the city of Inglewood did pass a resolution of support for that, which actually helps, I believe, at the state level get some points when the local jurisdiction supports those. And then, of course, you all created the Affordable Housing Task Force that you're very familiar with, and that I believe Molly will be speaking to.
So first, we'll get started with Lindsay, Executive Director for Innovative Housing Concepts. I saw the logo and then I
gotcha.
Would
Hi,
you like
Council.
to use the clicker?
Sure. I think I have 2 or 3 slides. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to talk about affordable housing as usual. I think most of you know me. I've been the executive director for about 4 years with the Housing Authority for 8. So we're a quasi-governmental entity. We're not a city agency. The majority of our funding comes through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. We get a little bit of funding from the Colorado Division of Housing, and then we have some of our own private properties that we own and rent that gives us kind of a non-government funding stream. We don't get any funding right now directly from the cities of Inglewood, nor the city of Sheridan. We operate their housing authority also. So right now, our affordable housing programs include our housing choice vouchers. We have 427 authorized in Inglewood, 181 in Sheridan. While that's the number we have authorized, that is not the number the budget capacity allows us to lease up. So in Inglewood, we lease up about 335, and in Sheridan, we lease up about 150. We have public housing duplexes, which we actually are now transitioning to a different program that I'll talk about in a second. But our 2 main residential properties are Orchard Place and Simon Center. They're both for seniors and adults with disabilities that are at 30% income or below. And that's about 205 units. And then our funding with the Division of Housing for Colorado is a grant that we partner with Inglewood and Sheridan School District to house families that are experiencing homelessness with children in the school district, or prevent them from experiencing homelessness by getting them caught up on their rents. Right now, we don't have any of our programs open for new applicants. We run our programs off either waitlists or lotteries, and they're normally closed. We open them every once in a while to allow folks the opportunity to apply. We don't have them continuously open because when folks apply, we get a lot of interest and a lot of wait lists, usually 300 to 500 people. And that's in having them being open for about 2 days. So we don't keep them open consistently because we'd have too many applicants. But when we do open them up, we try to do a lot of marketing in Inglewood and in Sheridan. Our voucher programs have preferences for folks living or working in those cities. So they basically kind of rise to the top when they apply because we feel that it's important to serve kind of our neighborhood first. But right now, nothing is open. I'm going to kind of circle back to the public housing duplexes. We have currently what I call disposed of these. I talked about this at council about 1.5 years ago. We went through a program with HUD called Section 18 Demo Dispo, and it has allowed us to kind of remove those duplexes from our public housing portfolio. And we have partnered with Habitat for Humanity to turn those into affordable home ownership. So we're just through well, I shouldn't say just through, in March, HUD approved our application and allowed us to dispose of them. So then from there, we were able to apply for the vouchers that the folks who lived in the units were going to get to then go lease up out in the community. We got those vouchers in about May. And so at this point in time, we have 6 out of the 10 have leased up already. They've taken their voucher, they found a new place to live. About half of the families have actually taken their voucher to a different district. It's called porting out. They ported to a different district that better fits their family needs, their educational needs. We even had a family go out of state and move to Fort Worth, Texas with their voucher. So it's been a really wonderful program because it's allowed the families in the duplexes to have that mobility that comes with a voucher. And then we're now going to use those units for affordable homeownership. We have just kind of started our piece with Habitat. They viewed a few of the duplex units that we have. They're super excited about the location, the quality, the condition, and we're hoping in about the next 12 months to have all of those units rehabbed and then on the market and sold through Habitat. So sorry the slide's not updated with that. I didn't realize I hadn't put that on there. But a very cool program that we talked about a year and a half, and it's finally kind of coming to fruition. Last but not least, we do a lot of partnership. We do a lot of this public partnership with private developers to bring affordable developments to Inglewood. So Shawn talked about Trails at Lehigh. That's one of the most recent units we partnered with. We partnered with Bonsai over in Sheridan. And then all the other ones here are these LIHTC developments where our partnership allows them to have sales and use tax breaks and property tax breaks. So it helps them basically pencil out the development better and keep the units more affordable by not having to pay some taxes on the property. And then again, that's kind of our non-subsidized assets and developments, our office building, our duplex and triplexes in Inglewood. We've got some developments coming up in Sheridan. We are focusing a lot on preservation of the naturally occurring affordable housing. You'll hear us talk about that later. NOAA is the abbreviation. And then we've been doing some land banking for future bigger LIHTC developments.
Before we go to Molly, are there any questions for Lindsay before we move on?
Any questions from council? I guess I have one, Lindsay. You mentioned that there was, 427? It was the very first item, actually.
Yes, that's how many vouchers we have authorized to lease up in our Inglewood voucher
But you also
program.
said that we're below that number. What's the reasoning behind that?
It's the budget authority. So HUD just doesn't give us enough money to actually take the 427 and lease them up.
Okay.
So you basically you basically get two metrics, right? HUD gives you a handful of vouchers, but then also gives you a handful of money, and then you figure out how that works. We are very conservative with our budget, and so we try to maximize the number of units based on our budget. So we have kind of stricter policies, like we do 2 heartbeats per room. Now, there's variations on that based on gender and age, but we basically say 2 people should share a bedroom because that maximizes the space for folks and maximizes more families using more vouchers because we have more money because we're not paying for everybody to have their own room. And that's actually a HUD suggestion. That's something that they have given to us to do. Not people's favorite, because sometimes people don't want to share a room, but it allows us to put more vouchers out there for people to use. But HUD just does not give us enough money. Currently, Inglewood's voucher program is in what we call shortfall. HUD didn't give us enough money in 2025 to maintain what we did in 2024. So when we woke up on January 1st, we were in shortfall. Went to bed on the 31st, everything was good. So now we have to kind of let vouchers go, and we're not displacing anybody. It's just that if folks leave the program or do get removed from the program for not following program rules, we're not releasing those vouchers up. So it's very much a budget game.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Member Russell, go ahead.
Thank you. And I know in the past, I haven't come to the meetings for quite a while, but in the past you've been in shortfall also, correct?
Sheridan was in shortfall in 2017. Shortfall's not a fun place to be, so we really try to manage it, but because of the way the cuts were, almost every metro housing authority is in shortfall this year.
Okay. And then My other question is, where are the duplexes in Inglewood?
They're scattered. So there's a couple that are on the other side of Santa Fe, on Vassar, and I'm going to blank on the streets over there. And then there's a couple on the other side off Lincoln and Inca. Part of the reason we didn't want them was a scattered site model can be very hard to manage. And so it allows us to not have to manage scattered sites and keep our developments more centrally located to our admin offices.
Okay, and are we partnering with Habitat for Humanity on that, or someone else?
Habitat. We're basically replicating their successful program in Littleton.
Okay, and I mean, I know in the past, Habitat for Humanity built some houses over on the west side of Santa Fe.
Yes, they built in Sheridan.
For home ownership.
Yes.
And some of them were in Inglewood.
Okay.
Correct? So, because I know someone that got one. So, okay, I appreciate those answers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Wright.
Thank you. Nice to see you again. One of my questions, at a presentation last year, there was some talk about purchasing some land to build some low-income housing. Are those talks continuing? Is that moving forward still?
So we have some land in Sheridan that we purchased a few years ago that we're hoping to develop on. It's just the math hasn't worked out yet with finding the funding and making the units affordable. And at this point, we haven't purchased any new land since then. We're always looking. We are, because we're smaller, we don't have our own kind of in-house real estate or development team. So we partner with a really awesome real estate person here in Inglewood who is always trying to find us either land or affordable units to preserve. And that's been a wonderful partnership. He found the other two ones that we have, he found those for us. So we're always looking, but nothing new has come up yet. And we've, talked about putting in land banking applications for Prop 123. Those are very competitive. We don't have a good piece of land yet, so.
We're speaking about right near Diamond Centers.
That is the land. So right now it has housing on it. It is the land we are saving for the future, but right now it has the 11 naturally occurring affordable units on it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Lindsay, I have one last question. Where do private activity bonds fall under this? I know it doesn't really fall under your authority, but...
No, but one of the things we've talked about is utilizing Inglewood's allocation to either do a LIHTC development, which is probably the most common use of private activity bonds. However, private activity bonds can also be used for preservation. So we had some conversations with some city folks here about kind of throwing our hat in the ring for this year's allocation. We don't have a property to do that this year yet, and we don't want to put the city in a position where you guys don't use your PAB because we haven't found something we need them for. So we are not going to be asking for them this year, but we're hoping that things will look different in 2026. To be honest, I think we're all a little nervous about the direction of HUD and how some of our funding might go, that we're not necessarily looking to take on huge new projects that might put us in a financially precarious place.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. All right, any further questions? If not, I'll pass it over to, so one other question. Go ahead, Member Ward.
I think I have more of just a general policy question. When you sponsor a development, so to speak, you said they get some significant sales and use tax breaks. And as you probably know, this is a city that is very dependent on sales and use tax. So to the extent that we're giving out sales and use tax breaks, it's important to see public benefit come from that. And we've recently heard from some residents who live in one of these buildings that was built with this type of arrangement, that they're being priced out of the affordability. So I'm wondering if there's a method that you have seen work, or there is a method that could work to ensure that when we give something like a tax break to a builder who builds something like this, we're actually seeing the benefit to the community that is desired from doing that.
So there's a couple points maybe to make about that is folks are being priced out. I do understand that point. Unfortunately, what is happening though is while some folks are being priced out, those units are still technically affordable. It's affordable at a different price point. And what we see happen is that the way the developments are run, which are federal rules that are then state monitored here by CHFA, rents go up and they're allowed to go up and the incomes don't match. So when they start renting, everything matches and looks great. But the rent goes like this and the incomes, if they're thinking about seniors or folks on disabilities, they're fixed, right? So then it starts having a larger disparity, so they end up being priced out. It's not the best thing. And I've had some conversations with some of our LIHTC partners that I don't love that happens. Has it gotten to a point where I feel like those partnerships are not valuable? No, because it still is bringing affordability to the city. But that's one of the things that you guys are going to talk about is where the gaps are. And when we talk about seniors, they really need things that are what we call deeply affordable. So not 60% AMI, 30% AMI, because that is where their income really matches a rent level. When you talk, though, about the taxes that kind of get taken away, what we traditionally see when folks have more disposable income because they're not spending all their money on rent, they're putting it back in the community by shopping more, or eating out, being able to do things. So that's how we sort of see the tax benefit or the tax kind of disadvantage. Financing to things like that are sort of out of people's control. That said, one of the things we've talked about internally is, we're actually revamping our process for how people apply to be our partner. That's one of the things I've been working on recently, and I've gotten lots of other examples from other housing authorities. And one of the things we value is partnerships with folks who are local. So we talk a lot about Medici, right, who did Broadway Lofts and have done Bonsai. They're here, right? They've got offices right down the street in Denver on Evans. I think that adds really some value when you have some local people. I'm not saying we would never not partner. The folks from Trails at Lehigh are from Kansas, and they've been fantastic. But I think there is value when you have local developers, and that is one of the criteria we're thinking about making more valuable in our application process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Member Wright and then Member Noonan-Camp.
Thank you. I appreciate all the feedback, and with you being in the housing field, what percentage overall of those that are living in Inglewood, and I would say it would be renters, are paying more than 30% on their housing at
I
this
think
time?
we have that. Molly's going to have that stat and cover
Okay,
that.
perfect.
It's high, and
Right.
it's, yes.
And that's a big concern. I mean, and I
Yes.
think that's something that we need to think about overall in this discussion.
Yes. In theory, you want to pay between 30 and 40, kind of no more than the 40 for rent and
Correct.
utilities.
Right, yes. I mean, I used to be in the field many moons ago, and that was always the baseline when
Right,
you're
it
looking
still
at
is.
someone's application, and I don't think it's realistic anymore because it's not happening, you know.
Right.
Expensive. But when I look now at some of these places in person right now, so, thank you so much. I'll be patient.
Member Noonan-Camp.
Thank you so much for being here. It's always wonderful to have your incredibly quantitative perspective and so helpful to hear from you. I'm going to ask a question that I want you to answer to the extent that you are comfortable, but because tonight is a workshop and it's about us learning what are the affordable housing needs in our community, what's the best way to address them. You know, we're seeing questions like, what is the city's role in affordable housing? Oftentimes when we have these conversations, I hear both from my colleagues on council, but then also from members of the community, oh, affordable housing, that's why we have a housing authority. That's why we have Habitat for Humanity. I would just love to hear from you maybe more of a qualitative way. Can you do it by yourself? And what, if you could wave a magic wand, would be the most helpful from the city for you?
Ooh, those are big questions, Councilmember Noonan-Camp. No, we can definitely not do it by ourselves. And I think as we talk about maybe what other cities have done, other jurisdictions have done, it has always been done in partnership. It is, you know, your local nonprofits, it is the state, it is the city, it is the housing authority, it is, you know, places like Habitat, Brothers Redevelopment. It has to be a partnership. We all have expertise in different areas, and we all kind of can help fill in the gaps in different areas. The housing authority is the only one who can hold vouchers, right, or have true public housing. So that's, you know, kind of our lane. But then housing authorities can also be developers. We're really good at managing properties and also doing the income piece and the qualifications. So we all have to work together. It's huge. It has to be a huge partnership. And Inglewood has, I think, a lot of wonderful players already in the city. So we can create some really good public-private partnerships. Wave the magic wand. Land and money.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Do I get that magic wand? Where is it?
Any further questions? Don't see any further. All right, Ms. Jones, I think we're ready for the next step.
Excellent. So Molly, I'd love for us to turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. So I'm Molly Fitzpatrick. I'm a managing director at Root Policy Research. It has been a while since I have been with you all, but I've been here before, back when we were working on your housing needs assessment, which wrapped up in 2022. And that is part of what informed the Housing Task Force and their work that obviously you guys have been keeping up as well. So I am gonna sort of just talk through how other local communities are working to address housing needs. So I'm happy to answer any housing needs assessment questions if we get to those, but today I was going to try to skip over the data portion and really focus on using your task force's recommendations as kind of a platform. How are other communities doing all the things that your task force recommended you all do? And so that will help provide context as you jump into goals and strategies, just thinking about, okay, as we're setting these goals, how are we going to actually get that done? This is some of the backdrop for that component. Broadly speaking, I will say that there is so much local housing planning going on right now and has been for the last couple of years. Some of that's because there's more state funding through the IHOP grants and Prop 123 that has facilitated that. The great thing about that is that means there's lots of other communities to look to that are trying to figure out these same things kind of on the same piece that you all are. Root does a lot of work around housing needs and housing strategies. We've done a lot of work in the metro and throughout Colorado, so hopefully we can bring a little bit of that experience to the conversation tonight. So just to start, as a quick refresh on the Affordable Housing Task Force and their vision, they articulated a vision to ensure equitable access to affordable and diverse housing options for all residents of Inglewood, including seniors, low-income individuals, homebuyers, renters, and future generations, with a focus on those struggling to afford housing costs. The goal that was articulated there was just to create a sustainable housing ecosystem that fosters stability, encourages community investment, and contributes to the overall well-being of Inglewood's diverse community. The actual recommendations that came out of the task force are shown here kind of as these arrows with a couple of bullet points underneath, pulled from their presentation back in January. So the first recommendation was an affordable housing fund. That kind of is really an overarching recommendation across these others. That is a fairly critical step in accomplishing a lot of the things that were in those recommendations. So that's kind of an overarching component. Some specifications or as part of that recommendation was predictable and from a variety of sources, and then distributing impact across multiple stakeholders within that affordable housing fund recommendation. The next two are sort of related to capacity and oversight of accomplishing affordable housing goals that we'll talk about, and that is an Affordable Housing Advisory Board as well as Affordable Housing Coordinator. On the advisory board, that would be a group that monitors funding allocations and outcomes. On the Housing Coordinator, that role would facilitate public-private partnerships and provide support and oversight to the advisory board. Under kind of those components that are really the scaffolding for accomplishing actual housing outcomes, you think about funding, you think about capacity and oversight, and really what we're trying to do with those is to build affordable housing through fostering partnerships with developers, requiring affordable units in new development, expand options for diverse housing types. All of those were recommendations kind of under the build category of affordable housing. And finally, the last recommendation from the Affordable Housing Task Force was related to assist in preserving, assisting residents in preserving affordable housing with the sub-bullet of provide or connect residents with housing resources. So we're going to just take each one of those individually and talk briefly about what are other communities doing across the metro within each of these. Affordable Housing Fund, that is a very, that's a big challenge, but it is also a really high impact solution or recommendation. Generally speaking, general fund allocations are the most common ways that communities are funding affordable housing. Some communities have a regular allocation, so they say we are always giving X% or X dollar amount from our general fund to a housing fund. Others are on a project-by-project basis. So council will say, hey, come to us if you have a project that needs gap financing, or if we have a light tech coming, we're going to do a little bit here or there. But again, general fund is the most common. However, dedicated funds are the most effective and reliable, but there's relatively few local municipalities that actually have that in place. That's primarily because they're hard to get in place because they typically require a vote of the people, right, based on Tabor. So a couple of examples of those dedicated funding sources are sales tax. Denver and Longmont both have a sales tax that go directly to housing. Property tax is another one. Boulder, Denver, and Longmont all have a property tax mill that goes directly to housing as well. Lodging tax and short-term rental tax are more common in our tourist destinations within Colorado, but Clear Creek has a lodging tax that goes specifically to affordable housing and childcare. And then Boulder and Wheat Ridge both have a short-term rental tax that goes directly to housing. We also see linkage fees or impact fees for affordable housing. Boulder, Denver, Lafayette, and Brighton all have one of those. Those are determined by a nexus study. It's generally part of an impact fee system. And then another option is an inclusionary zoning fee in lieu. So communities that have inclusionary zoning generally have a fee in lieu that developers can pay instead of building affordable units. They can pay for those affordable units. Denver, Longmont, Boulder, Littleton, Broomfield, and Superior all have that as well. I keep clicking my computer to turn the slide, which is not effective. So we often get asked, well, what type of funding sources work best? And my general response is whatever you can get. So some funding is better than no funding. But again, as I mentioned, general fund allocations are a great way to start, kind of proof of concept. They're generally easier to kind of kickstart, but dedicated revenue streams are going to be ideal in the long term. That's where we see the most kind of sustainable progress in affordable housing is in communities that have a dedicated stream that can be relied on, that allows staff and committees to be really planning around that, where those resources are protected for housing. It's also important to think about tailoring those to your economic context. In Colorado, we see a lot of this through tourism-driven communities, but other communities as well. So really thinking about what are our drivers for that, what kind of funding do we want to have that really is tailored to our Inglewood-specific context. The bottom half of this slide really just, again, kind of summarizes the typical types of funding sources. So if you're looking for kind of a broad-based option, sales tax and property tax are the go-tos, but of course those do require a vote of the people, which can also just help see what the expression of support for those is across the community as well. There's also kind of a couple options there that really focus on new development, paying for some of that affordable housing, particularly when it's tied with new development. So generally speaking, the new development sources are really saying, okay, if we're building new, we want to just keep up with what's happening. It doesn't necessarily like solve your existing affordable housing prices, but some of that can help kind of keep pace as development is coming. That's linkage fee and inclusionary fee in lieu. Tourism sector funding sources are generally lodging tax or short-term rental tax. And then there's other couple of options there. Real estate transfer tax is actually illegal in Colorado, but I keep it on because I always want communities to lobby for that to change so that you can have a real estate transfer tax. There's a few communities in Colorado that do have that. It's grandfathered in. General fund allocation, and then of course state and federal resources, but those are a little bit unpredictable at present. Okay, so next, looking at kind of the next tier of scaffolding around affordable housing, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board and the Affordable Housing Coordinator. Advisory boards are super common, especially in communities that are allocating funding to affordable housing. So we almost always see some type of either a division of city council or a planning commission or some combination of those two that is part of the allocation of those funds. So advisory boards, very common across the metro. Dedicated staff members, also increasingly common across the metro. That both, of course, a lot of times this has kind of been housed within planning. We're seeing more and more communities carve out kind of specific housing policy positions or housing administrative positions as well. So about half of every municipality, every incorporated place in the metro has a dedicated housing staff or dedicated housing department. On building, so taking each of these individually, these were kind of the recommendations from task force. So one was to foster partnerships with developers. We see that that's very common for the city to do, and that includes working with your PHA, but also nonprofit developers like Habitat for Humanity. You guys obviously already have partnerships there as well, and also LIHTC developers. So just having those partnerships, we see to be really productive from a process and transparency perspective, even when you're just in regular communication of understanding, well, where are the bottlenecks in our process? What do you really need? What's working, what's not working in terms of delivering on those housing units. So not just partnerships in the actual development, but maintaining that open line of communication has been a really effective strategy across the metro. The second recommendation within build was to require affordable units in new developments. So to that end, looking at kind of the second bullet there on approaches, there are currently 7 inclusionary zoning or inclusionary housing programs in Denver, in the Denver metro. There's at least 3 other that we know are actively considering that as well. And when we talk about inclusionary housing, we're saying when you build something new, you have to dedicate a certain portion of those to be income restricted. We, back when we did the housing needs assessment a few years ago, we did include a feasibility analysis to look at a potential program for that in Inglewood, and that did indicate that inclusionary would be a viable option. And that the recommendation that came out of that was just to engage, if the city does want to pursue that, to engage with Littleton. Theirs has been in place for a few years now, and we typically recommend that communities in close jurisdiction, in close proximity, kind of work collectively on that, so that you think about having kind of similar requirements if you want to go that route. And then finally, expanding options for diverse housing types. Most commonly, that's focusing on zoning code reforms that reduce barriers to a wide variety of housing types. And finally, the last recommendation to provide or connect residents with housing resources. Different approaches we see are just sometimes just improving communication so that residents know what's available. There is kind of a neat resource that you all may be aware of called My Friend Ben, which is an app that Gary Communities or Gary Ventures developed in partnership with 211 Service. And it basically is an app where residents can kind of plug in and see if they qualify for any programs. And so Denver and Jeffco already participate in that. And so they're kind of feeding their program requirements to that app. And then it makes it accessible for their residents to understand what they might qualify for. Again, another common and effective tool within this approach is the supplement assistance and preservation funds or assistance and preservation programs with local funding sources. So if you end up having some funding for housing, supplementing those programs that are working well with those local funds is pretty common across the metro. Housing navigators and specialists is another way to help connect residents. Jeffco does this pretty well, particularly around homelessness. They kind of had a countywide effort in partnership with the jurisdictions within the county to try and have navigators that were stationed throughout the county that could help navigate resources. And then continue to work closely with and support your existing providers, the nonprofits that are providing those services, as well as the PHA. So with that, I will hand it back over to Tasha to talk you through kind of where this might lead you.
Not without questions for you, Molly. Mayor,
Sure. Any questions regarding that content? Go ahead, Member Prang, and then Member Noonan-Kemp.
Thank you. Thank you for the overview. I am curious about the short-term rental tax. Can you talk us through how that works and how that actually results in affordable housing? Because in my mind, I'm thinking there's a tax so that the owners of those short-term rentals are going to pass that fee on to the renters. So,
right. So when we say short-term rentals, we're talking about things like Airbnb and VRBO. And so when we see taxes on that, it's typically a tax that gets passed on to tourists that are visiting the location. So you think of it as kind of like the same as a hotel motel tax, just applied to folks that are renting through Airbnb or VRBO.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Member Noonan-Kemp.
You mentioned Littleton's inclusionary zoning ordinance. Do you have any information on the success of that ordinance, including how many units it's actually produced?
I don't have the number of units off the top of my head. I did, I happened to just bump into a staff member from Littleton not long ago, and she indicated that they, from the staff perspective, view it as a very successful program, and particularly because it has geared those developers who are building new stuff to actually build the affordable units, which was the intent of their program. So they designed their program specifically to be a fairly low set aside of units. So if you build something, you only have to dedicate 5% of units to be affordable, and they set a pretty high fee in lieu. So it incentivized those developers to actually build the affordable units. So I do know that it is yielding actual affordable units. I don't know exactly how many. Thank you.
Go ahead, Member Wright.
Thank you. Thank you for all the information. My question is that most of the documentation that I see in the comparing of cities, the balance is off. The land mass is quite a bit off. The population is off. So I have a very difficult time understanding what one city's doing compared to what Inglewood could do, because we are very landlocked. We are very small in mileage, and our population-wise in mileage is very high when you compare. So I have a very difficult time understanding what some of these cities are doing, which are much bigger and have a lot more money than we do compared to what we possibly could do. So it's kind of apples to oranges. So I'm not sure. I guess that's where I'm having a difficult time, and I don't know how we could take what one city's done and do it here, I guess, is my...
Sure, and that's a fair point. I mean, certainly some of the communities I highlighted that have like a dedicated housing funding stream tend to be larger communities. That I would say that doesn't mean you can't do you can still put similar policies in place, right? And those are going to look different. So for example, when we think about, comparing Clear Creek County, which does have a lot of Airbnbs, it makes sense for them to tax those and use that revenue. That's probably not going to make as much sense. In Inglewood, you're going to have a much lower volume of that type of housing, right? And again, there are some communities, so we think about Broomfield, for example, obviously that's a bigger community as well, but they have focused really heavily on using new development to help cover some affordable housing costs because they have tons of land to develop, right? Again, that doesn't make sense. However, when we see communities that are landlocked, what we typically look for in opportunities on, for example, the funding side is to say, well, do we have, can we allocate some general funds in a way that makes sense? Do we want to think about if there's an opportunity to do a small mill or small sales tax, or at least run some polling to see if community members would want to do that. So we typically would look for funding that would come from existing development, not from new development, right? Because you are built out in that way. And so it really is just a matter of looking at that. We also would want to look at preservation strategies and say, okay, well, how can we keep the affordability that we have? Are there ways to do that? We have seen some communities put, for example, demolition fees really high to disincentivize, scraping and replacing with something larger, or having some type of demolition fee that says, well, you can demo, but if you build something that was bigger or more expensive than what was there before, then there's a marginal tax on that. So there are ways to do that, and it's really just a matter of trying to decide what you want to accomplish first from a goal perspective, and then piecing in what are the communities that help us get there. And so our objective was just kind of say, hey, here's what else is happening in the metro and some communities that are doing some things around this. We can get much more into the weeds and much more into the nitty gritty when we get to a place of understanding what do you want to accomplish, and then looking at how do we get there.
Are there cities that are working on keeping starter homes so people could buy? To me, it's just not about renting. Affordability is, let's keep some of these small homes so people could buy them and start off that way. I don't want a concrete city of nothing but apartments where nobody will be able to buy something and just have these $1 million homes that they're knocking down, these starter homes, and that's something that's very important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. In two ways. One is preserving the existing starter homes that you have. The other way is supporting nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity, who focus specifically on starter homes and ownership opportunities. There's also Land Trust. So Elevation Community Land Trust is another great nonprofit that works throughout Colorado, but is based in the metro, and they focus also specifically on getting people into home ownership in those types of places. One unique strategy that was sort of a partnership up in the Boulder Valley School District was they've actually built a modular factory that cuts the cost significantly for delivering those products. And so we have actually a handful of modular factories that are popping up. So there's going to be really good opportunity to partner with modular developers. But those still do need a subsidy in order to be affordable at 100% AMI, even 120% AMI or 80% AMI. And so really still looking at, are there ways that we can have partnerships with those types of developers that are going to deliver that affordable home ownership, and can we as a city bring some financing to the table or some funding amounts to the table to help get those delivered in vacant lots. And the nice thing about that type of approach as well is it can be scattered site. You can look for vacant lots that are one off, two off, that kind of thing. You don't have to aggregate land, but also looking for land donation options too.
Right, and I think that's something we should really look at instead, because I think we're losing a lot of that. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Member Ward.
So we have this list of things that other communities have done and a variety of options in front of us. The thing that I haven't really seen is, do we have any evidence at all that indicates that any of these options actually increases affordability?
We do have a lot of evidence actually of that. So there are lots of, there's academic research around some of these. There's also evidence from different communities that have put these in place. So that does exist. My goal for the presentation tonight was just to give you a little sample of kind of how some of this is being presented, not necessarily to pitch a specific approach or a specific kind of strategy within that, but just to kind of take those recommendations and say, hey, here's how some other communities are doing that. We are seeing really good progress on those, and there's a handful of communities that do a great job of tracking that, have really good staff that are continuing to kind of work through that. So the answer is yes. It wasn't necessarily the objective to kind of walk all the way through that. I think I tend to find that's most helpful when you're really drilling into, okay, what exact policy do we want to do here, or how do we want to structure a program, then getting into those weeds of who's doing it how and what's working and what's not working from that perspective. But broadly speaking, all of these recommendations are evidence-based and do have practical outcomes that have been delivered by other communities locally.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Member Russell.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Is there any data out there on some of these larger communities that we're comparing here to the size of the city and the amount of affordable housing already available in the city? I mean, percentage-wise.
Right, and I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, right? But in terms of looking at the percentage of units that are already affordable in communities, and then and also setting those goals, and I think that's probably a really good segue into talking about kind of how different communities set some of those affordable goals. And we really see, I would say the biggest difference in kind of types of communities, it's less about size, because a lot of times we're looking at what percentage of a housing stock is affordable, and how does that line up with the percentage of people in that community that need affordable housing. So we're always looking at kind of the balance of those two. So size doesn't matter as much as kind of that proportional balance. Certainly in higher cost communities, you're gonna need deeper subsidy to get that to balance. In communities where you may already have some substantial amount of naturally occurring affordable housing, you're gonna see that maybe we can preserve that, focus on preservation, in addition to adding units or making sure that people aren't being displaced as AMIs go up, and looking at different creative opportunities. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but one great way for folks that want to see a comparison across communities is you can actually look up the Prop 123 funding, and because that's public and because it quantified every community that opted in, it quantified their baseline. So how much affordable housing do they have, including naturally occurring affordable housing, and then how much would it take for them to grow that by 3% per year? It's pretty easy to pull that across all those jurisdictions. So that's something we could take a look at and just kind of see where Inglewood is stacking up.
Thank you very much.
All right, I see no further questions, so Ms. Jones.
Yes, we are trying to advance to a visual for you as Molly was giving that example. Okay,
We could try to get back to that at some point, so.
I am sitting in a no, it's great. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you to Shawn, Lindsay, and Molly for that framing, right, and giving us context for not only just rooted in data, but also in giving those practical examples of how other communities are doing it, or at least how they're approaching or trying to navigate their affordable housing needs or affordable housing challenges. So really great question. Thank you for the detail above and beyond. I appreciate that. Now, one of the things, just for context, through my lens, what I experienced, and I get that this was in the city and county of Denver, but on that Central Park community, 4,700 acres, 7.5 square miles, 30,000 residents, about 12,000 homes. So we're looking at 8,000 for sale and 4,000 for rent. The requirement that the city of Denver put on the developer was that 10% of all for sale built, that it was required that it would be 10% affordable. And then on that for rent side, that requirement was that 20%. So 20% of the 4,000 apartments for rent, 20% would be affordable. Now, Lindsay and Molly spoke to the only way something like that can work is A, if the city makes that requirement, B, if you have a developer willing to meet you there, a developer that's willing to subsidize some of that affordable housing. And then also having a mix of partners or builder partners who can deliver. Right, so I'm just giving that small scale example of land within a city. So not quite the apples perhaps that you were looking for, Councilmember Wright, but just trying to give a smaller context. Okay, so I feel like, this is what we were trying to get to. I don't know if this is a mind of its own, but this was one of the slides that we were eventually trying to get to when Molly was speaking about units, but we're going to keep going. Eventually, we will get to closing reflection. Okay. So this is all about you this moment, right? This is your moment to think about what's possible, unique to the city that you're leading, and unique to the visions that I'd imagine your constituents are looking to you, right, to bring forward. And so one of the things that I want to understand is, in conversation, what do you see the city's role in being part of this solution? You've heard a lot of ideas and recommendations from council. You've heard the way other municipalities are implementing, but we'll get to this in a second. But what I want to know from you first, while you're ideating, I'll wrangle the IT. But what do you think? What would you say, or what do you believe to be the city's role in supporting the delivery of affordable housing in Inglewood?
Go ahead, Member Nooncamp.
I can kick us off. My view is that the city's responsibility is to create an environment that it makes the production of the housing that our citizens need possible. And so that can be through partnering with private developers, that can be through maybe doing some of the work ourselves, that can be by incentivizing the kind of housing that we need in our community. I don't think it's the city doing everything, but I think we are the ones who are responsible for creating the environment where the housing that we need can occur.
Thank you, Member Nooncamp. Mayor Pro Tem?
I agree to some extent with Member Nooncamp, but I would put my emphasis more on getting out of the way. And I know that the task force provided a number of recommendations in terms of courtyard housing, additional modifications to ADUs. The state has a whole panel of ideas, removing parking requirements for housing, and then again there are more ADU rules that I think would further incentivize those ADUs. I think on top of that, we have one big opportunity would be the single stair access. We have a lot of small lots that could be developed in terms of building more units. There's a whole bunch of rules that we currently have in place that make it impossible to build the kind of housing that would end up being the natural occurring affordable housing over the long run. And that's where I would put my emphasis is let's get rid of as many barriers to housing as we possibly can, taking into account the kinds of things that the Housing Task Force recommended and the state has asked us to do, and see if we can implement those things and open up the opportunity for that to naturally develop over time.
So create opportunity, remove barriers.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So I agree with that as well, but I also think that there's some rules that I would be in favor of. So at least from my perspective, I think this council has done, at least taken a step by allowing some of the zoning or changing the zoning to allow for some of this affordable housing to occur within the city. So I think that that's one step. The other part is that I do believe that there may need to be a nudge. I'm in favor of what's the IZ? What's the I stand for? Inclusionary. I'm in favor of inclusionary zoning just because I do think that there needs to be a nudge for developers, especially with the city that's growing. I believe that there is an opportunity for us to get additional zoning. I know that some of the concerns around inclusionary zoning would be just the fact that price gets placed on the people that are going to be living within that complex. But I think overall, I think it is beneficial to grow the pod in order for us to take on additional projects. The other aspect of it is that I do agree that we probably need to be in lockstep in terms of not dropping the amount of organically affordable housing that's occurring within the city. So I do think that there's a renewal aspect that we need to keep in place and support. So those are the things that I kind of look at in terms of a city's perspective, in terms of just setting the strategic direction of affordable housing within the city and listing exactly what it is that you want to put your dollars towards, or what the ultimate game plan is for affordable housing within the city.
I love that you said the ultimate game plan, right? Like, I want to know large ambitions that you have. Like, we can get initially to the input process, but what are the overarching goals, or what's the overarching vision? I mean, you framed it up really well, Councilmember Unukamp, like just wanting to create opportunity, wanting to remove barriers, making it more designated, right? Through the inclusionary zoning. But what's the overarching ambitious goal that you'd like to see achieved in the way that the city can help bring forth a solution?
Member Ward, did you want to add to that, or a separate topic?
I think so. I mean, I would like to see us, as far as affordable housing is concerned, I think we've focused a lot on new housing stock. And I really would like to see us serve our existing residents by focusing on the existing housing stock. And what can we do to keep people in their homes? What can we do to make homes affordable? How can we help people live in the city with costs of everything increasing? I mean, I myself do fairly well, but I'm feeling the squeeze these days. And I bought my house when the market was in the toilet. So I just think that a focus on existing stock. And then one thing that I did hear policy-wise that actually has a fair amount of appeal to me would be demo fees. When you're taking an existing single-family residence that costs, maybe $600,000 or $650,000 in our market, and you are replacing it with 2 duplexes that are over $1 million, I don't really feel like we're necessarily going to hurt anything or miss a target on affordable housing if those $2 million plus duplexes each cost $100,000 more because of the demo fee. And now we have $200,000 we can use to help people who aren't in that $1 million plus market. So I'm just spitballing ideas here, but that one appeals to me. I don't think anyone will ever convince me that replacing a $650,000 single family residence with $2 million plus duplexes is actually increasing affordability in the city. And maybe I just have an intellectual block there, but that math does not make sense to me.
Thank you, Member Ward. Member Russell?
Thank you. And when it was brought up about demolition fees, I do believe that that's one area where we could make a huge difference. And one thing I would like to warn council about is the housing market is beginning to collapse. There are a boatload of houses for sale in Denver, and there are no buyers. And I am very concerned about increasing density again, which has been brought up by dividing and putting houses on every available small lot. Increasing density isn't going to fix the problem. And we cannot build affordable housing in an inflationary economy. And because a lot of this work has been done back in 2022, things have changed dramatically in that amount of time, and continuing along that same direction, I believe, is very dangerous at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Wright, yeah.
I think that one thing we have to be very mindful, some of the things that have been talked about, an affordable housing coordinator and that type of thing. I also believe that we have to protect the city and our budget. So anything that we're doing, have to be mindful and spending taxpayer money. This is not our money, it's the taxpayers. So we need to protect the taxpayers first, the people that are here currently that are funding anything that we're doing. Along with that, the more we build, the more we have to make sure that anything under us is growing with us. So our infrastructure has to support any additional building that we do. We've already experienced what we've had to do with our stormwater infrastructure. Well, we have to make sure that our sanitary infrastructure can build more, withstand. I had mentioned earlier that I would like to see home ownership with these older, single family homes. And I think that's something that we need to also have on that list. It's important to me. I don't know if there could be, just spitballing here, some partnerships where we could have some kind of a partnership where keep an elderly in their home and they can't live by themselves. So maybe a younger person or younger family lives with them and they start paying that person to buy that home or something like that. So when they're no longer with us, I think we need to start coming up with those type of programs. And instead of looking at other cities as to what they've done, let's invent stuff ourselves and think outside of the box on what we could come up with, so cities start copying what we've done. People, the elderly, and I believe, they're saying that Colorado is going to have the second highest elderly population by 2030, I think it was. And I think we could use that. People want to stay at home. And if we come up with programs to keep the elderly in their home while they're selling their house to somebody to help take care of them, where, that's building on it right there, I think that would be a great program for someone to come up with. So,
Councilmember, right, the power in what you've said is just creating something unique and custom that's with Inglewood in mind, with the long-term residents of Inglewood in mind, and that fiduciary responsibility to your taxpayers. Thank you for that. Councilmember Ward.
The other place where I think Inglewood could really blaze a trail and set an example for other communities is in the condo and town home market. We're seeing a lot of premium apartment buildings coming into the city, largely, from what I understand, due to construction liability laws. And I would like to see a local preemption of construction liability laws passed in Inglewood, given that that would potentially spur people being able to reach the first step of attainable homeownership, which is purchasing something smaller like a condo or a townhome, building equity, and then subsequently moving out into another place, or even staying there and retiring there, or buying it as a downsize smaller. It just opens the door to a type of housing stock that isn't being developed right now anywhere really in the Denver metro area, and would, I think, benefit the city by increasing homeownership in the city.
So delivering housing that meets people regardless of life stage, right? Entering into the market, downsizing. Yep.
And removing the biggest hurdle right now, which is that they can't insure those products.
Precisely, the construction defect, yes. All right. Oh, sorry, Councilmember. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess overarching ideas that I have, without getting too deep into the weeds of anything, I want to see us strengthen and incentivize retention of existing affordable housing. I would like to see us create an overlay of the city where we identify areas that are underdeveloped or underused for housing purposes, and tie that to a realistic 20-year plan to phase in housing development.
Excellent, thank you.
To phase in, and I want to stress phase in.
Thank you.
So not jumping to an immediate overall, we're doing it all out the gate, but we have planned steps to get there. I would also like to see us strengthen our policies around ADU development and the fees associated with that, and the potential of waiving fees or providing some more incentives for ADU development that would be tied to a commitment from the ADU developer or the homeowners that are building them to rent at an affordable rate.
So on par with the deed restriction, like what do you, where the ADU is required to be provided over the course of a period of time? Like, can you provide some detail on that restriction that you're thinking of? I'm trying to understand the.
I don't know.
That's fine. You're thinking
haven't
big, so
fully
you're okay.
fleshed out the idea, but I'm just thinking like stronger incentives. So we have increased our allowance of where people can build ADUs.
Yeah.
So tying more incentives to a commitment from those who are building ADUs to rent it at an affordable rate.
Understood.
So there's an extra incentive of building that ADU.
Thank you. Thank you. And is there additional big ideas?
That's mostly what I wanted. I guess my last thought would be, we have a lot of conversation around densification that seems to really impassion people on one side or another. And I'm wondering if we need to be looking more at the use of words like intensification versus densification. I think there's value in exploring that.
How would you delineate intensification? You said intensification.
Yes.
How would you delineate that from densify?
So intensification
Or
meaning
density.
focusing on infilling areas that are not utilized for housing that could be.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Noonan.
Sure. I could talk about ideas and ambitions and goals all night, so I will not do that, although I do think there's a lot more we can do to be stronger partners and to incentivize the type of developer we want, especially small-scale developers. I think the cottage court development concept where you preserve the existing house and add other houses on the same lot is perfectly tailored for our city. There's going to be a lot of time to talk about all those details. I wanted to follow up with a question on what Member Russell said, specifically for Ms. Fitzpatrick, because it's a similar question to what I had. Is our housing needs assessment is a few years old now. The market is evolving. Could you just help us frame this conversation in how should we be thinking about the data that we have and its usability, and what other trends are you seeing that would be relevant to a conversation around how we set goals tonight?
Sure. I mean, yes, the data and the housing needs assessment are a couple of years old. Since that time, it has become more difficult to purchase a home because interest rates have gone up. That brings purchasing power way down. So even though we are seeing homes sit longer on the market, it's really, really challenging for folks to afford those homes. So affordability in the ownership market has likely declined. That's what we've seen in most communities in the last few years. Much harder to buy a home, bigger challenges there. On the rental side, we are seeing pretty stable needs. And so I would say the needs that were quantified a couple of years ago are likely still pretty similar. They may have grown to some extent. So for a couple of reasons. Number one, you may see some headlines around, oh, vacancy rates are up. Vacancy rates are up in luxury markets. Vacancy rates are not up for rentals below 60% AMI. Vacancy rates are basically non-existent for those affordable rentals. So even though the market as a whole, we may see a little bit of softening, it's at those higher price points. We're also seeing a complete drop in development in general. So because developers are also having to pay higher interest rates. And so we're entering a place where we may end up with another shortage of housing in a way that could, in fact, in 5 years, really exacerbate some of those affordability needs. In addition, we, as was referenced earlier, even if rental prices are fairly stagnant, we're not seeing rising wages pull people out of that hole. So broadly speaking, housing needs are likely similar or worse than they were a couple of years ago.
Very insightful. Thank you.
Okay, so as we go into this next portion, thank you for giving all the ideas. Ideally, I want us to stay really big picture. The reason is I want you to think about like aspirational. And then I loved what you mentioned, Councilmember Pring. Am I saying it right? Pring? Okay, thank you. I like that you said working toward, like this 20-year working up. And so some things that I want to be thinking about is what's achievable within 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And we'll talk through that. But as we go to the next section for the discussion, I want you to think about the type of role you feel that your community expects from the city to play in this as we look to prioritize. Are there areas where the city can lead directly? Are there others where the city solely plays a supporting role? There was talk of partnerships. We heard about partnerships. And so what we're going to get into is you've got these definitions of inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And so inputs are city controlled, whether this is policy changes, funding decisions, hiring staff, everything that you heard that task force recommended, those were inputs. Outputs are these short to midterm, they're results of like collaboration, of partnership, working with your housing authority, working with select developers or home builders, coming together in a public-private partnership fashion to achieve percentage of units, percentage of homes, number of homes, what you want to preserve, and then outcomes, that long-term, what that community impact, what you want that to be. Being able to keep people in their homes, being able to preserve the single-family homes that are so unique and special to this community, and how do you find that balance of delivery, of responding to the demand of who needs housing and what that product type needs to look like. So it's just that stable, inclusive, measurable affordability, sustaining affordability. And so the exercise that we're going to go through, you've listed out all of these ideas, and obviously you can't prioritize all of those today. You can't achieve all of those in the next year or within the next 5 possibly. I don't know, maybe not the next 3, not all of them. And so what I want us to do is we're going to work backwards. We're going to start with outcomes. Again, I'm going to get you back to like really big thinking of what you want to prioritize. And so how do you believe that you'll know? And we can talk through, like, is this 5 years from now, 20 years from now? I think we start with what's achievable. So how do we know that there's been some measurement of success in what the city has committed to do in introducing some solutions to affordable housing in Inglewood? Do you need a break? Do we have time for a break?
Take a break. It looks like we do want to take a break.
Yeah.
10-minute break. Come back at 7:40. Just before 7:40. All right, let's take a quick 10-minute break and come back just before 7:40. 7:27 right now. So thank you, everyone.
looking for something aspirational that can have a measure associated with it when we get to
All right, members of council, I think we are now back. Ms. Jones, I will pass it back to you.
So I think I'm going to help do an improved job of framing up what I'm asking you to do. So I talked about outcomes, so long-term community impacts that measure success. So this idea of like, how do you know that you've been successful? There was talk of preserving naturally occurring affordable. From what I heard from you, that's an example of how you would know that you would be successful if you're able to preserve that housing. The long-term community impact is that you keep that housing preserved in your community. Then if we look at outputs, so these are the measures, like how you're going to measure it. So here are a list of examples of how other cities have done it, how they've created those outputs. So create and preserve 3,000 affordable units in this year. 758 new units of affordable housing each year through partnerships with developers. Over 1,600 new affordable units by the end of 2026. 3-year commitment to receive Prop 123 funds. So these are examples of how we'll think about outputs associated with the outcomes, the aspiration of what you're envisioning for Inglewood. And then we'll get into that discussion of those short to midterm results, where you can partner, you can achieve the number or the percentage or what metric you decide to associate with these outcomes. And what you won't see us do today is we're not going to go through inputs. We're not going to talk about the inputs. One, because you gave us lots of ideas about inputs, which was really, really helpful to get us thinking and understanding where you want to see outcomes eventually be connected to inputs. But also because the city staff, they want to hear the top 2 to 3 priorities in terms of outcomes, the goals. They want to understand where do they need to get started in partnership with City Council based on those priorities, and then they will assess and come back to you and present a case for what those inputs could look like based on the prioritized outcomes. So I'm going to go back. You listed some outcomes in the conversation initially. So some of the outcomes that we heard, which thank you for already writing one down, Shawn, was preserve existing affordable housing. Do we agree that that's an outcome that we want to think is aspirational and have it written down on this chart? Can I just get a show of hands? I just want to make sure. Okay.
No. I want to make sure. I do not think that should be an outcome, and I can explain why.
Please.
Thank you. The reason is, and I'll use the example we talked about, demo fees as a way of preserving affordable housing. If you have a demo fee that makes it prohibitive to tear down a $400,000 house and put up two $800,000 units in its place, you have preserved one more affordable unit, but you don't know how many affordable units you have prevented getting developed. Maybe it was allowable in that zoning for that $400,000 unit to come down and for 10 $400,000 units to go in its place. But you were so intent on preserving that one that you failed to acquire those 10 new affordable housing units. So you're never going to be able to know how many units you prevented from being built by preserving the existing affordable housing unit. And we have far more zoning capacity for higher numbers of units, and that's really our only, I think since we don't have control over the direct prices of the vast majority of houses in the city, our only outcome that I think is really a really viable outcome for getting us to more affordable housing is increasing supply. And things like inclusionary zoning and demo fees have the high likelihood of having the effect of preventing new supply. And inclusionary zoning, for example, might work now to get a couple new units, but if interest rates go up a little bit, now it may make it completely unviable for that developer to build that new 250 unit apartment complex that they were going to build. And so you're preventing new housing units from being built. So while I love the idea of preserving affordable housing, we don't know if our policies are actually going to have the effect of saving some affordable housing but losing a whole bunch of new affordable housing when we create punitive measures to preserve that affordable housing.
Understood. So then, am I hearing you say that you believe an outcome should be increasing supply?
Yes.
Okay, can we add that as I will add it to this list here, increasing supply. And then I'm curious if this changed anybody's opinion of having preserve existing affordable housing. Yes.
I just have a clarifying question, because with all of this, the devil's in the details. It's how we write the actual policy. Do I thematically and inherently believe we should preserve currently organically existing affordable housing? Yes. At the expense of other things? Maybe not. So I think I would take it with a grain of salt. I actually agree with Joe, and there are times when I do think it makes sense to preserve, which is why we need to have good staff and good policy.
Thank you. So I want to keep us high level, which is why this is here. And eventually we'll get to output, we'll get to staff providing input and working collaboratively with you all to get into the details. Assuming that that gets passed tonight, right? Like, we still have to get more added. Okay, did you no longer? Okay, yes, please.
Something that, if you go back to the goal that the Housing Task Force had, they used the word ecosystem, a sustainable housing ecosystem that fosters stability. And in housing, we talk a lot about like the housing continuum. So we need the diversity of housing types that are required by some people who live in our community. We need deeply affordable units, transition units, we need semi-affordable, we need single-family homes, we need higher income homes, and we need everything that cuts across the need. We have like significant gaps along our continuum right now that creates instability. So if someone can't jump from deeply affordable to single family, then they're just SOL in Inglewood. And like, that's not okay for me. So what I think an outcome of, if we do all of this work, we have a great plan, we set the right goal, is that we have a stable housing continuum that meets our community's needs. That will include the different types of diverse housing, from purchasable units to rental units. And so that's like the ultimate outcome if we're thinking very big picture.
Okay, so 2 questions. Can we add increase housing, affordable housing supply? Can we add that to outcomes, to the chart? Okay, it's staying over here, but please.
I was going to say, I just need a little bit of clarification. So for me, and I think it goes to your second point with the diversity of housing, if we're going to talk just about affordable housing, to me, affordable housing is 30 to 60%. I'm also interested in the 80 to 120, which I would consider affordable. So for me, it would be along that entire continuum.
Got it.
So however we want to define it, I'm not sure if that's a different outcome if we're going to be talking just about affordable housing, and a separate outcome if we talk about middle income housing, 80 to 120.
Okay, couple things. One, it was my understanding we were talking about affordable housing. I'm just going to make that point. Caveat, I heard you reference continuum. So can you clarify, are you talking about continuum within affordable or continuum across the housing spectrum?
I'm talking about overall our entire ecosystem across the housing spectrum. But that said, I do think that we could land somewhere in the middle on identified, maybe not just affordable, but based on our needs assessment. Like we know where we have the gaps. So maybe it's not increase housing supply, it's maybe fill the gaps we have.
Okay. And then Councilmember Anderson, can you clarify the increased housing supply?
Yeah, I was speaking more broadly, and the reason I think that it increases affordable, if you increase on the high end, then you eliminate competition on the middle end, which eliminates competition on the lower end. So increasing supply across the board relieves pressure on the lower end of the housing market. So I think you need all of it, and that's what I was suggesting, is increasing supply across the board.
Excellent.
And certainly including affordable, the affordable housing types. Though I think it's unlikely that most new affordable housing, if it's market-based, isn't going to be affordable the first year it's built. But 10 years, like if we're thinking long term,
right.
New housing.
Okay.
And condos.
To fill the gaps, right? So can you help us write? Increase. Well, I would like it to be here. We're agreeing that we're going to add, you can hear me out first, increase housing supply across the housing continuum. I know, I'm just trying to process everything I heard. Yes, I just heard 3. You're already voting, right? But there's one more piece, right? To respond to the housing needs, to fill the gaps, right? So, okay. So I'm going to say it again. Increase the housing continuum supply to fill the needs gaps. Needs/gaps.
Can I just ask a
Please.
question? If I'm saying yes to that, that doesn't negate the fact that I still want to preserve existing. Okay.
No.
Okay.
So,
and when I say preserve, I get your point, but I'm thinking of like the
not
trailer
negating.
parks that we have that are deeply affordable for people and not getting rid of them. Those
Correct.
types of preservations.
You're
Okay.
not negating.
Okay. Cool. Okay. I got my hand up for that.
Yes, please.
How is the government going to control this?
That's what the city staff is going to determine the inputs that would make that happen.
Have fun.
I can't answer that for you. But it's a long-term outcome. That's a desired outcome. Councilmember Ward.
I was going to comment earlier, but are we ready to move on to the next
Yes.
item? I know that when I talk about homeownership in the way I'm about to talk about it, I risk villainizing renters and landlords, and that's not my intent. But I think it's a principle in America that homeownership is like the pathway to the American dream. And so one of the things that I would like to see as an outcome is an increase in owner-occupied units in the city. Whether that takes the shape of condos or townhomes, or that takes the shape of transitioning some of our existing REIT investor-owned rental properties and moving them back to owner-occupied properties, or some other form, I don't know. But I think one of the disruptions that we've seen in the housing market over the last decade is that people who would otherwise be owner-occupied single-family home buyers are competing in the market against investors. And that has caused difficulty in attaining that first step into a home for a lot of people.
Agreed. Is that an outcome that we can a desired outcome that we can add to the chart? Or are we keeping it in the parking lot? Yes, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
Member Ward, would you be open to a slight amendment to maybe not say we want to increase units to be owner occupied? So I do think that could be misconstrued. Could we say that we want to increase pathways to homeownership in the city?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Okay, then I would vote for that.
Increase pathways to ownership in the city as a desired outcome. Can you add that to the? Councilmember Wright. You have another outcome? Yeah, we need to go back to the list.
As I go back to the list?
I mean, I need to pay attention and
Yes.
keep going back to the list.
As I had mentioned earlier, long-term outcome, coming up with innovative ways for people to stay in their home while bringing possibly somebody in, whatever it was I said earlier, a couple different ideas. Keep an elderly in their home while bringing a possible buyer into their home when they're no longer with us. Like bring a caretaker, an elderly person, keep them in their home, bring in a caretaker that with an option to buy their home, bring in innovative ideas for ownership, kind of like what Member Ward was saying.
Mm-hmm. And so just bear with me, what I'm getting caught up on is I'm trying to figure out, is that an input? And so I'm trying to think of a way to bring it a higher level outcome where you were saying, we got preserve existing affordable housing, long-term community output, preserve, keeping housing options affordable for residents to stay in their home. I'm trying to figure out a way to frame that as a high level outcome.
Right, because it could be multiple ideas. I mean,
so it's written down, right? And we won't forget it. We might come back to it we'll revisit it. It might come up in an output. Is that, so we don't forget it?
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine, but I think it's something that we need to think about.
But it's like a
just
long
like Member
term.
Prangs, where hers was a 20-year,
yes.
Long-term plans.
Yes.
Come up with long-term plans to keep people in their homes while offering ownership to others at the same time.
Okay.
Type of thing, so.
Right, something that I was discussing offline is an outcome that you have a city like long-term affordable housing plan. It's an affordable housing plan. We'll get into the details of what the outputs need to be for that plan, the inputs as you described, but can you add as an outcome that you want a long-term 20-year affordable housing plan for the city of Inglewood? So I'm just going to bear with me. At Central Park, we had an affordable housing plan. So would you like to have a 20-year, or you tell me the year, but would you like to have a long-term affordable housing plan that's created by the city, that's followed by anyone who wants to build in the city? Yes,
I
please.
guess my question is, and what I'm really struggling with is, why is it government's role to make sure a person can stay in their house as long as they want? I have a problem with that. I think the individual themselves decides that. So, I mean, I was going along with what Councilmember Wright said earlier. How is the city going to do this? Because some of these things really is not government's job.
And so when we get to the prioritization part, that's where your vote is going to be expressed, where you can say, I don't want that to be the priority. I don't want that to be the top 2 to 3 priorities that we focus on. So I'm trying to get roughly 8 or more listed of these high-level outcomes, what the outputs could look like, And then you're going to like exert your vote on what you want, and we'll get to that, but you're going to be able to say, this is what I want us to focus on. I'm all in on this one idea. So I hear you. So can we agree that we would add, I think we got 4 saying that they would be open to.
What was the question on?
Yes, I'll repeat. Yep. Do you want to add to the chart as a desired outcome, having a long-term City of Inglewood affordable housing plan?
Can I ask a question? Is that an outcome or is that an output? Would that be, we have a plan and that creates the outcomes we're talking about? Because I do think we need a plan. I just don't, I don't want success to be like, we have a plan.
Touche. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit. I'm just saying, it's achievable. You can create a plan, but I mean, let's stop there. Doesn't need to be an outcome. I'm not trying to force it on you. I'm just hearing this desire for having a plan, being able to find a way to assure your residents that affordability will be in your city.
But I think that's what we already have on the board around having the housing continuum. I think another way we could say that is that we have, diverse housing options for all types of residents. Like we can talk about whatever, but basically, do we have the housing that our citizens need? I think that captures what Member Wright's saying. I think a plan would be an output personally.
Perfect. Okay, then. Yeah, I mean, we heard.
Or I'd be up for it to be an
An
output.
output.
Yeah.
Should we put the plan idea as an output? So instead of it being the long-term outcome, the output for the continuum would be to have a City of Inglewood affordable housing plan. You would determine if that's a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan.
And I'm supportive of that depending on the plan.
Right. Right. Yeah, no.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
I do think that needs to remain a really high level statement and that we don't define it too much. However, to Member Noonenkamp's sum of your point, I think, I would like it to see it tied to current data and analysis of that data.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think that's really important,
important.
because even some of the statistics that we were looking at to prep for tonight are a little antiquated at this point. So what is the current need? What is projected growth? And what is our current housing stock at any point in time? So when you have a phased in approach to a long-term plan, it's, I don't know, you create regular intervals where that data is refreshed.
So that's an input that the city would have to keep top of mind, or introduce, I should say, that overlay that you talked about. Make a note on the overlay. So a plan that's reflective, but routinely updated with data and inputs. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to this list instead of, so there was one that said create, create an environment where affordable housing can occur, right? So the city needs to write the policies and then get out of the way. I'm like, who wants to claim that? But it was create an environment where affordable housing can occur. And I feel like we've got preserve existing affordable housing, increase supply across affordable housing continuum, increase pathways to home ownership. Do you feel like we've captured that in that first one already?
That one was mine, and I think it is kind of the broad pieces. Like we have the right policies, we have the right funding, we have the right incentives, so I don't know how we want to articulate that, but I think it gets to both Member Wright and Member Russell's question of like, what is the proper role of government here? And I think it is the role of any policy-making body to say, how do we create an environment where we are not controlling the outcomes, but we are making the desired outcomes possible? And that is how policy can shape action so that affordable housing can occur organically, and that we can have partnerships where we need to provide funding or, waive fees for affordable housing projects or expedite things. Those are all the other levers that we have the ability to pull. But I do think I would love us to be the most pro housing that we need community in the metro. How do we create a place where people want to build the housing that we need?
So is it create
an environment where the housing we need can be developed, or I'm not sure how we say it.
Is that an actual outcome, though, that you're looking to?
Yeah, I'm just referring back to what I put on the board. I'm not sure if it lives in outcomes or not.
I don't think
that's my question. Is
is it that we have a policy environment that produces desired outcomes?
It's an output.
Yeah, I feel like policies are an output.
Great.
Councilmember Russell.
Actually, I do agree with that, because what the city does, us as a government have control over, is creating policy. That's our job. So I think creating the environment is correct. It will show itself in the policies that we make.
You were going
I think I would say policies that produce housing freedoms, so people can build the housing that the market is asking for. That's the environment that causes flourishing.
Can you say that one more time? I'm still trying to merge it with what I've just heard.
Maybe it doesn't merge. I don't know. Okay. Maybe I'm trying to hijack her idea. I'll go back with Chelsea.
Okay, because I'm still on this. Okay. So what if we created, we're kind of cheating by what I'm about to say, but what if we created outcomes, right? That created policies, outcomes, to introduce policies outcomes that introduce policies to, I'm just trying not to say the same thing. Please.
So if we take it to how well we know we are successful, first of all, you have people in the city staying in their homes, doing whatever works for them. And then that could go into the long-term community impact, into our outcome.
Okay.
I think that's great, actually. If we survey our citizens periodically, and one of the questions we ask them is, how long have you lived here? Mm-hmm. So if over the course of 20 years, we see the chart get longer for the longer period of time and shorter for the short-term people, we know that we were successful in creating an environment where people want to live and can live. So
create an environment where people want to live and can live. So create policies that preserve an environment where people want to live and can live.
Yeah, and an outcome there would be the measure of how long people have been here actually getting longer over time. So, in 20 years, we see more people on the 20-year margin because this year they started living here longer, or what have you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but long-term residence as a goal, I think, captures a lot of what we've already talked about, and I think Member Russell sort of hit on that.
People can sometimes get stuck in a place that they don't want to be, though, because of, again, housing, they have a low mortgage interest rate in the house they want, and interest rates are high now. They may want to move somewhere else but can't afford to. So just because people stay that's not always a positive outcome. I think especially in an entering suburb, transition is normal. So I don't know that the outcome of having long-term stability of the same people is particularly a sign of success.
But then we make it a successful place for them.
Right, what I heard was the success measure would be if they want to stay and they want to live here, you've created a policy that allows people to choose to stay and create their ability to stay.
And to the extent that they might be stuck here, it's not necessarily anything we did that caused that. Unless we made it so cheap that they literally couldn't afford to live anywhere else. I mean, I just think that the people who are leaving, in a lot of cases, are leaving voluntarily because they are at a stage of life where another town fits better. And to the extent that we can avoid that, I think that's a success.
But to capture what you're after, I think it would have to be a survey, not just how long, do you want to live? How long have you lived here? And are you satisfied with that? Not just as pure numbers, just because we have this many people who've lived here 20 years, that doesn't particularly tell us whether they want to be here or not.
But the survey would be the input, right? But if I'm hearing like the long-term outcome goal is creating an environment where Inglewood residents can choose, have the opportunity, like there's policies where they have the opportunity to choose to stay or choose to come live here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, long-term presence in the city for a large percentage of people is a sign of a stable city. It's a sign of stability. Maybe I'm missing something there, but stability is something that I happen to crave. So I think it's...
We're trying to be careful of the role of government and stability of stability, right? I'm trying to figure out how.
Actually, I think that Councilmember Ward has really captured the essence of this in the first statement that he made. And because when we do interviews for boards and commissions, the greatest thing that people say is they love Inglewood and the small town feel, and that's why they want to live here. And I think that, and I mean, even look at that now in 1/3 of the population still living here that have lived here their entire life. And so I think that Councilmember Ward has captured that pretty good.
Okay, so yes.
I just want to weigh in. I think this is a really interesting conversation, and I do think resident longevity might be a very interesting metric for us to track maybe in our strategic plan, because it gets to, are they happy with all of our city services? I question if it's a good metric to use to, are we meeting their housing needs? I think of a lot of long-term renters in our city who it would show up on a survey, yeah, I've been here 10 years, but they are not happy with their housing and their ability to move into the housing that they actually want because they can't afford to buy in the city. And so I think we might get false positive data to say, oh, they've been here 10 years, isn't this great? When actually it's like, yeah, because I can't afford to buy a house somewhere else. And so I just want us to be cognizant of those risks and say, maybe we transition this idea into a different study session. And I don't know if it's the right fit for their housing metric.
Well, I can interject here.
Please.
As a long-term renter in the city, in the same house for 17 years, and I know the city has, 40% renters. I'm in a house and I'm very happy, and we choose not to buy, and we choose to stay in the house that we live in, and we know a lot of renters, and I'm speaking for people in houses that are rented, that are very happy where they're at, and they choose to be where they're at, and they don't want to. So I think that if you surveyed those people, and here's one thing that I will define though. I think it may be different for those that are in multi-unit buildings compared to people that live in houses also. And I think there's a big difference in quantifying the difference. People that live in multi-units move quite often, and their rent may be raised more often than those that live in houses. Probably surveys on or reports on the two. But, as someone that's separate than those in this room, we've been where we are for a very long time, and we're happy with it.
So we've landed in some pretty subjective waters without survey data. But I am curious if Councilmember Ward, if you could rephrase, restate the outcome statement that you envision. My vision is to see if we can get it added here.
I mean, I think what I said originally was sort of going off what I heard from Councilwoman Russell, which was increasing the percentage of long-term residents in Inglewood over time.
My question is there agreement to make that be an outcome a desired outcome that we add to this chart? I just need to see hands. And you want to restate it?
Increasing the percentage of long-term residents in the city over time. So when we survey today and we say we have this many, and we survey in 20 years, we've seen an
You want to increase the number of residents?
long-term.
Long-term.
Yes.
Can I ask a question on that, or?
Please.
Yes. I'm okay with that if the output is based on whether or not the resident wants to be here, in a sense, or they're happy being here. That metric, because to me, if you're just looking at someone that is living here for 20 years, that doesn't tell me much. It just tells me that they've been living in Inglewood 20 years. Whether or not they're happy living in Inglewood, I think, is a better metric for me.
I still think that's a red herring relative to the housing discussion, honestly. Like, we have a goal here, increase housing continuum. An increase in the number of long-term residents would be a sign, to me at least, that we have done that.
They're happy with the housing
situation. If you grew up
situation.
here and then you settled here, you were able to find stock, presumably, somewhere, possibly with your parents, but not always.
I'm not sensing that there's 4 in agreement yet on this idea of adding it to the outcome. Correct? Or are we? Do 4 people agree with this idea of a desired outcome? I mean, yeah, I know. I'm about to just have us just focus on these 3. But
it wouldn't be the first time one of my good ideas got shut
it's okay.
down for lack of consensus.
It's okay. Yes.
Well, can I ask staff actually to capture the idea? Because I think it's still an interesting idea for the council. I don't love it here, but I think it could be interesting in like our strategic plan.
Yeah, it's captured.
I'm not far away from it. It's just there's something that's just missing for me. So I just got to noodle along.
I'm not going to pressure anyone, but you've been heard, and it's on the list. Okay. Yeah, I think we need to go to outputs because I feel like we got focused on existing housing stock by helping them stay in homes, protect taxpayer dollars, and protect taxpayer dollars and the elderly, to help the elderly, create programs that are unique to Inglewood. I feel like that's a output. Have diversity of AMIs, that's the continuum. Mm-hmm. Fill gaps in the levels of authority, that's increase owner-occupied pathways, got that. Create a 20-year, okay, I just want to make sure we got everything. So,
Steve, you have another one?
Oh, good.
Yeah, something I never thought I'd say, but when I look at what other communities are doing, there's the sheet in the packet that shows other communities. The one that resonates the most with me is Boulder's, which is 12% permanently affordable housing stock by 2035. And I'm not saying that the number or the date necessarily fits, but the concept that we have permanently affordable housing stock in the city, I think, is something that needs to be included in any discussion on outcomes relative to affordable housing in our city.
Do we get there with the 2 outcomes that we have today? The preserve existing affordable housing, and what's the one right below it?
Increase supply across affordable housing continuum, and then increase pathways to home ownership.
I agree with it. I was thinking we would get there with the outputs though.
We're going to move to outputs next, so let's just hold on to that. So how does that live? Do we add that as an output?
I put placeholders there, X and X, but I think
because you want it to be measurable.
I don't know that we could land on any specific numbers tonight, but without looking at the data that we already have and surveying the existing stock, but I still think that this is something that would benefit the affordable housing goal.
Yeah. Sorry, member Ward. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd be good with outputs there. I like to throw numbers in there as well, but straight numbers, not a percentage. I would be more comfortable with a number.
I'm not sure. Well, I had another idea. I don't know if we wanted to weigh in on member Ward's.
I think we're still weighing on member Ward's.
Can you state the idea again?
Yeah, it's on the sheet of things other cities did. Boulder's example is 12% permanently affordable housing stock by 2035. That's in Boulder County. I don't have a specific percent or date goal, but in mind. But I think that concept of having a direct and measurable thing that we're shooting for, I think would be useful here.
So increase housing stock by X number of units by 2035? Or
they've used a ratio, 12%. So a ratio compared to the rest, as opposed to a specific number of units. And the benefit of that is that it might actually fit into what we have now as far as a comparison.
So I'm holding up a slide that was in your, I think you just got this today. And this is the potential housing goals based on percent of total units. And so you could look at it from low, and I just borrowed yours. I'll give it right back. Let's look at it together. So sorry that I took that from you. So we've got commitment level low, medium, high. And then based on that commitment level, you then have percentage of the total. So if it was low, it'd be 5% of the total. Medium would be 10%, high would be 15%. Equating to the number of units would be low 945. So it's like, do we want to list one of these numbers? Because this is based on your total number of units in Inglewood, right? The 18,895 or, yeah. Yes, please.
And these are just multi-unit housing. It's not what could be potentially a house that someone could buy that we've discussed, an affordable house for ownership. This is multi-unit housing, correct?
This would be, I mean,
Well, I submitted the number of the 581 of the LIHTC units and the 204 federally subsidized, and I think we then estimated the NOAA. Is that how you got to the 835?
So
581, 204 is.
I'm sorry, you think that when you...
So I'm asking,
Yeah.
are these all
that's
multi-unit?
Oh, so the 581 is multi-unit, yes, multifamily units.
581 was
581 down here, the LIHTC, and these ones, these are federal, or these are multifamily units.
okay.
The 835. Why am I? Oh, sorry. I'm like, I cannot do math. Yes, all multifamily.
if I can go to it.
So everything on this is multifamily, and then
Everything that's currently affordable. We
Oh,
don't know the NOAA can be the.
This is the slide.
Thank you. Like, I can't read.
Okay.
Yes, and then we don't know the NOAA, and that could be. I mean, we've talked about this in terms of renting. So the NOAA could be houses, but in theory, the NOAA is of those smaller apartment complex buildings that are still multifamily, but they're maybe the 7, 8, 12, 15 units, 20.
Okay. So what we're looking at on this then is nothing for ownership at this time. Then just thought. I guess this is my issue. My husband and I choose to rent. We have our reasons. We've owned before, and just between HOAs and things that have happened, we prefer not to. We like where we live. But a lot of people on here may come to a point where they want to own, and if they're living in a little house and the owner says, you know what, I want to sell, and they've been able to get to a point in their life where they could buy that little house, or they can't buy other places or whatever. And if we could lift somebody up and keep them in Inglewood because that's where their kids go to school or their family is or whatever, I would love to have something in place where we have affordability, and the numbers, if we come up with a number or percentage, would include required affordable for ownership for people, because we are losing that. And one of my big issues, and Tina could probably, remember praying, I apologize, could probably add to this. The more apartment complexes we build, the more children we lose out of our school system, because people do not want to raise their kids in apartments. And so if we have affordable little homes, people are going to want to have their children in there. They're not going to have them in an apartment. And I think that's something else that we need to think about. And member Pring could probably add to this on the school board. So I think she knows more about that, but it's just fact. And I think about that maybe as an outcome. I don't know.
No, I think
It
though it's an
bothers me.
opportunity though. You bring up a great point. It's an opportunity to how do we phrase it as an output? Right?
We're losing kids.
So I just want to put that in the parking lot. How do we phrase that as an output in terms of number of units? Are you delineating the units? That's for you to decide, but how do you want to phrase it as an output? Putting that in the parking lot. Councilmember Newton.
This actually connects Member Ward and Member Wright's points, just getting back to Member Ward's point about permanently affordable. I do think one output we could have is that we have a long-term partnership with a land trust, which can include pathways to homeownership that's much more realistic and in a way that creates long-term affordable housing. I don't support the word permanent. Most deed restrictions or land trusts top out at 100 years. I think there are some that are shorter. I think long-term affordable units is really smart. But I wouldn't do permanent. But I do think that the land trust piece can actually marry, I think, what both of you are looking to accomplish. So I would say an output is, or maybe this is input. Bear with me, but it's some sort of relationship with a land trust, but then also strategic use of deed restrictions.
I do have a question also. So is on this chart here, is that the percentage of all the total units we have available in Inglewood? Like the 5%, the number of units is 945. Is that 5% of all of the current units we have available?
Shawn, you have to answer that. I didn't. I just provided the 835.
Yes, and John Vobrel, one of our senior planners, is here to, he can speak to the 18,000, but yes, that's a total number of residential units in Inglewood, all units. And so this slide that you see in front of you is saying 5%, if you set a goal of 5% of permanent affordable, any kind of affordable, then you would be needing to create 945 affordable units, of which we already have 835. So I also just made a column for the gap for that. If you were wanting to be pretty aggressive on 15%, that's 2,834 units of your total housing stock of 18,000 and change units.
So we currently are less than 5% of affordable units. Does that include housing also, or just rentals?
Yep, I think that's everything.
Okay.
It's everything for the total number of units. Just to clarify, the only quantification we have on currently affordable units, we only have the data for the rental, subsidized rental units. There are a few additional units that are Habitat for Humanity within the city, but it's a pretty low number. So I don't have that exact number, and I don't think Lindsay has that exact number either. But my guess is that's fewer than 40.
Well,
So-
that may be, but there's also another possibility that some of these rental homes that are owned by individuals, they may be renting them at an affordable price also.
Absolutely. So this is just reflecting units that have a specific income restriction. It does not include units like that are naturally affordable, but aren't guaranteed to be rented to someone who needs that level of affordability. So that 835, so the number of units that you would need is just based on the percentage. The gap to achieve the goal takes into account the ones that you already have that are specifically income restricted for those folks. You could probably add, I mean, I don't know how many Habitat has, but I bet it's 20, 30, do you think, at most? Okay, so, I mean, if you wanted to factor in the homeownership units that are deed restricted or income restricted, you might want to add 10
So
to 20.
does that include all Section 8 housing in Inglewood?
Yes. Well, no.
It doesn't, because folks with our vouchers can also rent in unincorporated Arapahoe County.
Okay, thank you.
John, were you going to add some?
I was just here to confirm that the 18,892 units are all units in the city, as in complete inventory of all units in the city. And those percentages that were computed there are taking 5, 10, and 50% of that number.
Can I just add, just real quick on context, that most of the time with goals, we see that set as a percentage of total units without factoring in, okay, we want, 10% of our ownership units to be affordable and 10% of our rental units to be affordable. The vast majority of the time when we see goals that communities set, they set it as a percentage of affordable or number of affordable units as a percentage of total residential units. That doesn't mean you can't think about different targets or for rental and homeownership affordability. You're just much more likely to get designated affordable out of the rental market because there's so much more funding and infrastructure in place to create affordable rental. There's vouchers, there's a PHA, there's LIHTC. It's generally harder to deliver those affordable homeownership units. So it's still a great goal, and you could set a goal. You could even say, okay, let's try to get 5% on the ownership side and 15 or 20 on the rental side. But most of the time when we do see goals in other communities, it's set as total affordable over total units as opposed to separating that by tenure, ownership, and rental.
To the of whole Am I giving you the quantify?
I don't really want to come up with the number. I'd like my peers to collaborate with me on that. But the example I read was X% permanently affordable housing stock by X date. And I liked Councilwoman Noonenkamp's suggestion of removing the permanently and substituting it for something less aggressive.
I was gonna say, I'd be on board with that. Looking at the numbers, I think 10% is going to be like a stretch goal for us. So I'd be happy with something underneath that. Just giving direction to staff in terms of a numbers. Like I just think 10% will be hard, just based on what I know today, I guess. So obviously, looking into the future, we want to be a little bit more aggressive. So
Would you be comfortable with a 5%? And then, if so, what time frame would make you comfortable with 5%?
Well, based on the numbers that we provided to DOLA, the 5% is doable. So I think I'd be shooting more for 8% without knowing what exactly 8% is. I just think 10% is a stretch goal.
Could we include in this number ADUs and new cottage houses? Let's say, you know, we have a policy to increase the number of ADUs and new cottage houses that aren't you're not demoing another building, they're backyard cottages or whatever. Include those and aim for like, 2.5% be those and go for 7.5 or 8%. That way we're getting those, you may not be able to measure whether they're long-term affordable, but they're good for the market. And in the long term, those kind of units that are small units on small plot of land will be affordable.
So do you want to delineate an output for each? Or do you want to say
I think one
8%?
output that's 8% and
Okay.
and include a goal within that of
Yes.
2.5% of
Inclusive
those
of.
being ADUs or cottage houses.
Are we comfortable with adding that as an output?
Are we expecting that the cottage houses are going to be affordable? Because from what I've heard about current market conditions, that is not going to be the case.
I think they're affordable in the long run. So whether if they come on the first time they come on the market, brand new cottage houses are not going, maybe they won't be affordable because they're brand new. It's just like new cars are more expensive than old cars. But I do think in the long run, houses built on a smaller plot of land with a smaller footprint are going to be more affordable. And so I think that's valid to add that to the goal if we're trying to have a long-term vision.
With it being 2% of that product type. Okay, yes, please.
I agree with Councilmember Ward. I mean, even ADUs, reading in the packet that ADUs are very expensive, and so a lot of homeowners currently aren't doing them, even though we've allowed them to. And so I think that's problematic.
Thank you. Councilmember Nimkin.
I wonder if there's a way we can bring this together, because I feel like now all of a sudden we're talking about like the goal like a little bit quickly here. I hear what Member Ward saying, I hear what Member Anderson is saying. We have this idea of like the different types of housing we need. We want for sale, we want rentals, all these different things. With respect to Ms. Fitzpatrick saying like other cities do it as a percentage of total, I wonder if council said, big aspirational goal, we say the medium. We do 10% over the course of a set number of years, and we ask staff to come back with the breakdown, right? The breakdown is, okay, this is how many deeply affordable across our continuum of need. Based on the gaps we have, this would be how many cottage or ADUs or condos or townhouses. This is how many rental units this would be. This is how many people, how many below 50%. And we could kind of maybe get a sense of how the weight distributes across the 10%. I wonder if that's something, there's something there for us to think about.
So yes, I do agree that getting into the weeds on what the product type is the input for the staff to help come back and propose to you. I'm sensing that 10% is too high. That's what I heard on the opening, and I'm reading body language that's cluing me in. So I'm wondering if is 8% comfortable more than 10%?
Respectfully, our 3-year goal is 170. So if we're talking about 20 years, I think 10% is quite not very ambitious. So I think it depends on the time horizon.
And that's why I'm asking the question, is it 5% by 2030? Is it 8% by 2035? Is it 10% by? So I need to know what percentage you're comfortable with, but if you say a percentage, I need to share with your peers what time frame you're thinking of, right? So you said 10% over, what's the aspiration?
10 to 20 years, open to council input.
Okay, 10% over 10 to 20 years.
I
heard
8%.
8%.
More aggressive.
Over 10 years.
8% over 10 years. 10% over 10 to 20.
I think I like the 10% over 10 to 20 better. As far as I'm concerned, the higher the percentage, the longer the term needs to be. Because one thing I've learned over the last 4 years is that our residents are very, very sensitive to sudden, drastic change. So we can do this, but we need to take time to do it.
Yes.
Thank you. And one of the things, and one of my concerns was our infrastructure.
That's right.
We're talking about doing this change, and it may not be a sudden change, But with any change, we need to make that our infrastructure can withstand it. And I think that needs an outcome too, is updated infrastructure with any of this outcome. If you grow one, you have to grow both. And I've not heard any of that discussion at all. So that
Okay,
needs to be done.
yes, please, thank you.
I do have one other thing, like currently we have 835 units. Even if currently we go to 10%, it's more than double that. So that's also pretty massive to increase more than double. I still think 10% is pretty high. Even over 20 years. Even over 20 years.
Why does that feel high over 20 years? Like, what's the consternation? I just want to understand.
So 10% currently is 1,889 currently. If we do increase the number of units in Inglewood, and we are landlocked, we're 6.5 square miles. And I agree with Council Member Wright about the infrastructure, because I think we are maxed out on infrastructure right now. But I'm just saying, even to get to that 1889 today, it is more than 2 times the 835. I don't think even in 20 years that's doable.
Yes, Councilman. Thank you. Councilman.
I just simply wanted to say I like 8% at 10 years. I think that 10 years is enough time to overcome some of we're not doing it so suddenly. I mean, it's 10 years. And it's also a good time frame to show that we are making a commitment to actually do this. We're not just talking the talk anymore. We're actually putting some measurable goals to it, which I think some members of our community that are pretty outspoken are at.
Okay, so I'm going to reel us back in. And I'm just going to, by a vote, 8% over 10 years. Okay, it's being written down. And remember, you don't have to vote for it. I mean, you just didn't. For those of you who didn't, but I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to be your priority. You don't. But for some, it might be. It might raise the top. Yes.
I calculated what 8% would be, and that would be 676 units.
Are we still comfortable with 8% over 10 years? Yes.
Just to be clear, are we defining an AMI with this number, or we're just saying new units and then we to be determined?
I think you let staff come back and propose for you. I don't want you, right? Let staff come back and propose to you convincingly how 8% could be achieved over.
Great, just clarifying.
Thank you.
I want to return, I had mentioned the 2.5% for ADUs, and like, if that gets worked into this number, great, but I'm not sure the way it's framed right now. Like, that's where I really want to, and maybe it's worth putting a separate output up there for that, but I know those that, several observe that they may not qualify as affordable housing if you go out and look at the actual number once you have a brand new ADU build or brand new cottage house. I still think it's worth increasing the supply, and it will help our housing and, our housing in the long run. So having an output that's focused on those might be worth it, even if it's a second one.
That's fair enough, because you had an outcome saying increase supply. Increase supply across affordable housing continuum and increase pathways to home ownership. And if you're introducing that 2% idea with ADU and cottage, right?
Yeah.
That would be an additive output.
Yeah. And the reason I chose the ADUs and cottages is because we're not demoing houses to build. Those are new units that are going in on, or in some, in some circumstance, maybe you're demoing one house to build 5 cottages or something like that. But it's going to be an increase in supply, so I think it's good for the market.
So could I ask you a question? If you're adding that 2%, as if you get agreement, right? Adding that 2% as an output, can you just share how you respond to the affordability of, or maybe the lack thereof, like how expensive it can be to build ADUs? Not everyone's building ADUs, correct?
Yeah, well, it's just expensive to build affordable housing too. I mean, that's just the reality.
Yep.
It's expensive to build all types of housing. ADUs and cottage houses are increasing supply, so they're driving down prices through the fundamental economic principle of supply and demand. And they're doing that at no cost of demolition. So you are helping the market for housing overall. Furthermore, they're small units. Small units tend to be in the long term more affordable than big units.
This is how you're creating an environment.
Yeah,
by
exactly.
Providing another option, another choice. So can we add as an output 2%? Yes, please.
Question, 2% of what? 2%
Total
of
units.
Total
housing units in Inglewood,
Uh-huh.
and increase 2% just in ADUs.
Yeah,
and
ADUs and cottage houses.
I agree with this, but I'm wondering if we can add, because in outputs it says specifically in collaboration with partners, if it can be something like we increase this through, we can have new partnerships on financing for homeowners, and we also can, Habitat has a great ADU program right now that I'd love to see in Inglewood. So I think that there are ways we can do this too with partners. That's the one thing that I'll just add to this.
I think that's
I'm happy with including partner, but I want to count,
Yeah, I agree.
the policy that creates the incentive to just build them without any partnership too. I want to count those units as well.
Right, but I'm just saying, I don't know if we'll get it organically without additional
I
partnerships.
don't know if we'll get all 2% organically. So.
I do agree, not that you need me to or not, but I do agree that if you do add that 2%, that output does entail having a partnership. So if you add that,
I think partnership, subsidy, or grant, or Member Prang's idea of having them be subsidized and then affordable first, all of that stuff I would include in the package of 2%.
Or potential policy changes.
yeah, subsidy gets into input, but I do think that the partnership piece. So can we add, including 2% of total units, the requirement being 2%? Yes, please.
Is it the 2% of the 8%, or is this 2% of all ADUs?
I think it's
2% of all 18,892 units, which I'm sure
John's doing the math.
Mr. Borbrell
John
has
just
the
did the
number
math.
for us.
That'd be 378 units.
That is a great number.
And do you really think that we would have that many built?
Over 10 years.
We already have 100 ADUs in the city, I think.
Over 10 years or 20 would we do this?
Is that right?
Did you say 7 years? Okay.
10 years.
Okay. So 2% over 10 years, ADUs and cottages. Okay. It lives on the list. It,
Could go 20.
It's just not on the chart.
20. Let's go for 20.
Over 20 years? We got over 20. Yeah.
I was going to say, the reason why I didn't put my hand up is that, to me, that's more of an input. I'm happy with the 8% for now. And to me, it's I don't want to prioritize one housing type over another. So that's my reasoning for not.
Okay. I think we're good. Now, do you want, can you share? Oh, you turn on your.
Who on the 2% of the ADUs are cottage houses? Who's going to be the 2% and who's not? Out of the, what's the number again, John?
To the 300?
300 and something.
Yes, 2% of 18,892 is 378.
So who's going to be the 378? And if we don't hit that number,
we lose.
That would not be a success measurement. Yeah, you would need the success measurement.
it doesn't.
However, let's see what staff proposes, and according to the inputs. Okay, so I just temperature check. This is a lot of work to get to, 3 outcomes, 3 outputs. Now, what I was going to have you do was, you've got these stickies You each get 3, where you're able to have 3 votes. Would you like to go through the process of voting on these? And what that entails is, so you get 3 votes, so you could put all of your dots on one idea. That would indicate like where you're feeling very passionate, where you really want the staff to focus, or you can distribute your votes. Or are you feeling like, instead of going through the process of voting, are you feeling like this is a solid place to start where you want staff to explore all of these? Right? Yes.
I would like to add another outcome.
Excellent.
I'm not ready to do that yet.
Okay. And then there was a mention of another outcome I recall as well that somebody was thinking about mentioning. Okay, so we'll do that.
It shouldn't be a long conversation. I think it'll be quick.
And if it's not, we'll get through it. Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
We recorded that, so just so you know.
Run back the tape.
Councilmember Newton.
One just idea, you can take it on advisement, is we could leave the outputs and the outcomes, add additional ones, but because we have council consensus on these ones, I actually think like not mess with it. I would be very interested to use our dot voting on the yellow sheet of like all the different inputs and ideas, and I wonder if that would be more helpful to staff. So that's an idea if you want to take it.
I graciously accept that idea. I think it's a good one. Okay, what would you like to add for an outcome?
So my wish is more philosophical than number of units, et cetera, but I think it should be a guiding principle and outcome of this work, is that the city adopts policies that prevent gentrification or pushing low-income residents to the periphery of the city.
I mean, you got one immediate response. Immediate. Are there any other who would embrace? More questions for it? Please.
Can I ask a question? Can you help me understand what policies might accomplish what you're stating and what kind of, how you're defining gentrification or any examples of it that you can point to in our city so I can better understand the goal?
I define gentrification as middle to affluent income persons coming in and taking over land, and us not having a choice of where we put affordable housing. I don't want to see affordable housing get congregated in any area of the city. I want to see affordable housing throughout the city. And so I don't want to push people that are in that circumstance to the periphery of the city. I want to make sure that as we're creating affordable housing, that people have access to resources and amenities and transportation, etc.
I like the way you stated that goal a lot better than the way you stated the first one.
What's that?
I said I like the way you stated that goal, your restatement.
The positive framing.
As
That's
opposed
fine.
to the
As
first.
long as it gets to the outcome of us not gentrifying the city and us not.
So, can you?
Yeah, it
Councilor
would be
Bourne,
a variety of housing stock in all areas of the city, essentially. Would be the way I heard you say it. So, you know, not forcing all the affordability into one part of the city, ensuring that people have an opportunity to live in all parts of the city.
So ensuring that affordable housing is integrated throughout
Exactly.
the city.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
that's good.
that's kind of what I heard that I liked about what you were saying.
Any other question or comment before I ask you to vote? Yes, please. Russell.
I do have a question, and does that involve rezoning our city again to make that happen, or can this happen without rezoning?
I don't have a definitive answer to that, but I think that would have to be considered.
Okay, thank you.
And I think if it gets voted on, the staff could look at what those inputs would be to present to you, how to preserve that. So, do we want to vote to add as an outcome, ensure that affordable housing is integrated throughout the city? Okay.
3 minutes. Member Pring, you were right. It was 3 minutes.
You
It
were
didn't
right.
take all night.
It was quick.
It took 3 minutes.
It was quick.
And I will add, I support every way she said that because I
Oh.
understood completely what she says. Good job.
All right, and then what I also heard, there was a desired outcome for around infrastructure that it was said that that wasn't mentioned. And so, yeah, which kind of could be an indication of how is it written twice? Ensure infrastructure is adequate and assess. Update infrastructure as units increase. Does infrastructure, you want to add that as an outcome? Assessing infrastructure and update as housing units are built or added as an outcome. Yes, Councilmember Ward.
I'm a little confused about the talk about infrastructure because over the past 5 years, we've embarked on this project to massively improve our underground and even above ground infrastructure. So I'm not really sure where the concern comes from. We have a water treatment plant that now serves over 50,000 people by day. We have a sewage treatment plant that serves over 300,000 people. We have underground pipes that we are in the process of replacing, valves that we're in the process of inserting, stormwater projects that we've embarked on and expanded. And each new development that comes into town requires a stormwater and drainage plan. So I think we're doing this. I'm a little, I feel a little bit like pointing out infrastructure as a need is somewhat alarmist and maybe distracting from what we're actually doing.
I was going to say a lot of the similar things. I think we also have some development fees tied to infrastructure as well. I'm trying to think if police was included as part of that. Maybe not, but it was. Okay, so I think we've captured it over the past couple of years in terms of conversations around the rewrite of Code Next and further discussions on it. So I'm happy with where we're at. I'm also thinking whether or not it's just an output or an input. So
Fair enough. Councilmember Russell.
Thank you. I think that in that PUD meeting, the person from utilities, when they were asked about infrastructure, the things you all have mentioned have been upgraded. And the person from utilities said the water supply is adequate, the sewer is not. And I believe that when you start checking into the sewer, we are getting very dangerously close to a failure of our sewer system in places. And you can all ignore that, but it's going to be very costly. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Councilmember Noonankamp.
I would just say that I appreciate Member Wright raising this because we always have to think about the other unintended consequences of our decisions. And we had a big conversation about this during Code Next when we were talking about housing supply and density. And the staff actually did an excellent presentation for us that walked through the existing systems that are in place to make sure that every time that we authorize new development, what the checks and balances we go through to ensure that our infrastructure can handle that. And so I wonder if staff could actually re-elevate that presentation to council, because I think it is important, but I don't think it's part of this process, because I do think we already have that system in place that ensures that we check our infrastructure before we build anything and permit anything new.
So it's an outcome associated with something entirely different that holds you accountable to make sure like anything that's built new, you don't need to have it.
That process is already in place. I think we could re-up that presentation from staff.
So it'd be redundant
yes,
to put it here.
in my opinion.
Okay, that's what I've heard from two. Okay, Councilmember, yes, right.
Well, I guess my only concern is I appreciate and I would like to see that because I wasn't on council. But my concern is we have the Oxford that was built, and I know that it was built before the staff that we have now, so I do not want to throw anybody under the bus, and I'm saying that clearly. But how many
projects do we have where their water, stormwater goes directly into our system, and other things that put us at risk that we don't know about, where it put our infrastructure at risk. Like Member Russell just said, and is a lot of what sparks concern to me when we were listening, where our own staff, the test came out and said, well, they can't build anything else there because of stormwater in that area, and the sewer system could not, hold a multi-unit there, which do a whole lot of, property owner would have to do a lot of work for upgrading. Not willing to do upgrading in that area either. So I think those are the type of things that spark concern for me on different parts of the city as to where we are with our infrastructure, on making sure that we are okay. And I guess that's my biggest, safety for everybody is my biggest concern, and making sure that we're okay. And that's why I brought that up.
And just to inflect a moment, like what I'm hearing is just wanting to make sure that that infrastructure priority is associated with the housing commitments that you're making in this conversation. That's what I'm hearing. What I'm also hearing is that there's some assurances that that's addressed elsewhere, but I'll just go back to, I'm hearing wanting assurances that that's not forgotten, whether it's in the plan. So it's on the list. Staff can figure out how to make sure it, it bubbles up. But I just want to make those points that I hear those two things, and I think it's important to associate it with your housing commitments. Okay. Mayor Sierra, your lights. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. How do you feel? This was a lot of work, and I thank you for the leadership that you brought forth in trying to think through how you want to prioritize moving this forward. There's a lot that you get to put your dots on, or at least to choose from. And so what I would ask is if you just take a moment to get up from your seats and come read through, and here's how this works. Where did Tim go? Got it. Okay, perfect. Do you want to explain, or do you want me to? Okay, I will do it. Okay, you won't mess it up. So you have 3 stickers, which means you have 3 individual votes. So 1 dot equals 1 vote. And there are a lot of ideas that you shared, but I think what will be helpful for staff, I already gave them all out. They have them in front of them. Oh, got it. Of course you can. That's right. Okay, this is where you chime. Okay, thanks. So it turns out the ones I gave you didn't have your names on them. Thank you, Tim. So we want to know where your vote is landing. Okay, so this is how we'll end this meeting. So you have 3 dots per person, 1 dot equals a vote. Let's say there's one piece that you're so passionate about, infrastructure, right? Let's say there's one piece that you're so passionate about, you can say, I'm putting all 3 of my dots there, and that's it. So if you can take a moment just to come, and I mean, I don't want to read these for you unless you want me to, but I think if you just come look at them up close.
I actually would like to dispute this because this is not open and transparent to the public, because we are going up and personally putting those on, and then staff will choose. And I have a problem with that. It's one thing when we do it with the strategic plan. It's a different thing when we're doing it in a study session. And so I would dispute doing this. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. I would ask if, by way of having your names on the votes, and then I'm just curious from staff, when we provide all of the notes, because we'll transcribe all of this and then share it, does that get made public?
Yes, and we can also take a picture and include it in the, in the attachments. So
With
that
the
it's a
results of the
photograph
vote.
your, right,
Yeah, with the results of the vote.
right.
So I would ask, does that still feel problematic if we take photos and share with the public?
It does feel problematic to me.
I was gonna just ask, is it necessary for us to put it on there? Just because there's been plenty of dialogue from council on the items. You've heard where some of our pain points lie with what we discussed, but also where we're looking to prioritize. We're also looking for staff to come back to us in terms of the inputs that we're expecting. I think we've given the outputs, we've given the outcomes. I'm wondering whether it's necessary or not to put stickers on the list.
Thank you for the question, Mayor. I will just say that we will bring back all of these inputs as options and as kind of a menu of options for inputs to get you to your outcomes and outputs. So from that standpoint, you could kind of prioritize the inputs later if you wanted to, as opposed to now. So I think that could go either way. I think it was a suggestion of Member Noonenkamp. So
No, that's
do you
okay.
want, maybe you could expound on the rationale.
No.
I just thought if we were going to do dot voting, I'd rather go from the long list than the short list, but I could take it or leave it, whatever. If we think it's helpful for staff, I think it's interesting, but we do not have to do it. But I do think it feels relatively the same as when we do it for strategic planning, because it's also a study session. So I don't have a transparency concern since this is standard practice for us.
Does anyone else have an aversion to coming up and placing dots on the?
I don't particularly have an aversion to it, but I think there are things that I didn't get a chance to put on that list that I would like to. So I don't know if I would actually be able to capture my priorities by just marking things on that list.
So here's how I'm going to reframe it. So unless anyone wanted to add anything more to that.
No, the only thing is that I think I need more than 3 stickers. So
I'm sorry?
I would need more than 3 stickers for that list. So that's the other issue that I have.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah.
You would have, I do agree with that point too. Okay, so thank you for the pivot, and I think it's okay. Because ultimately, what we wanted to be able to provide was some priorities that we heard from you that staff can then look at what inputs they're going to bring back and propose to you. I do believe that a lot of what you've listed here, what you've shared in this discussion, are inputs that are going to inform these outputs and outcomes. I think we're okay. We don't need to vote. Okay? So that is the next step. You've done the hardest part of this stage. The next step will be synthesizing all this information, and then the staff will come back. Anything else to add, Shawn? Thank you. I pass it back to you.
Tasha, thank you very much for tonight. Thank you very much for leading that discussion. Lindsay, thank you very much for your inputs and all your knowledge on the affordable housing that we have here in the city. So really appreciate your time and thoughtfulness in bringing the conversation to council. So thank you very much. Shawn, is there anything else you want to say on this item? Just move on to the next thing. Perfect.
No, nothing further.
All right. Thank you very much also to staff as well for taking part in the dialogue as well and providing all the information. We are moving on to agenda item 4, reports from boards and commissions. Anyone have anything to add for tonight? Go ahead, Member Noonenkamp.
I'll be quick. The Cultural Arts Commission met last Wednesday. They, I think I've shared this before, the new liaisons for that commission are communications. They took over from Parks and Rec. And they are working on codifying a lot of the kind of standard practices of the commission, as well as creating goals for what kind of art they want to prioritize, and standard practices. How much do we pay for art in the city? What's a fair and equitable fee that we can give an artist? Do we want only artists from Inglewood or from all over? So a lot of really good kind of administrative work that the commission's been working on right now. And then also making plans for how they want to participate in the Inglewood Block Party and other public art sculpture or public art installations throughout town, including some new public art that you will see in the Circle and by the amphitheater very shortly. So some new sculpture pieces that will be there at least temporarily. We wanted them to go in the Hampton medians, but CDOT is impossible to work with, and so we are putting them in the Circle because we paid for them almost 2 years ago and we've not been able to display them because we've been waiting for CDOT, and then they might be moved in other places throughout the city. So that's the update.
Thank you very much, Member Nooncamp. Mayor Pro Tem.
I had a ETAC meeting this last month, and the one thing I wanted to share from that meeting was that there were a pretty significant number of public that came specifically to speak about the crossing at Fox and Oxford. And the general sense from that group is that they're happy the city is doing something, but they're not enthusiastic about a flashing yellow light for their kids crossing Oxford to go to school, and would much prefer a solid red light like there is down by Jason Park. Indication from staff was that it was not warranted. That did not seem to ease anybody's concerns about that. So I just wanted to get that on council's radar.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Did you say on Oxford? That was the Oxford crossing?
Yeah, the Oxford and Fox crossing for the kids going to Clayton.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Member Wright.
I had a question. They did a study there, and didn't they say because of the light over by Metal Gold and then further down is the reason they had to do the flashing light, correct?
No, it was just because the number of people did not meet the requirements in the MUTCD or whatever, that the number of people they expected to cross there did not meet the manual of what makes it so that the government lets you put in a solid red light. So, you know, and they said this actually came up at the meeting where our traffic engineer that recently quit said we should remove the crossing down by Jason, the red light, because it's not warranted either, which got negative reactions from that group as well. Why are we why would we want to remove a perfectly functional red light? So I happen to agree with those citizens and think we should put a red light in at Fox. But
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. One item for me from sustainability, or two things that came up. One, it's going to be coming in front of us on the 28th, but they had a long discussion regarding the decarbonization, the waste characterization study. So basically, the discussion was whether or not there should be a letter of recommendation for sustainability, but they didn't have enough information to provide one at that point. They are getting back together to discuss any open questions that they happen to have. So there may be a recommendation that comes from sustainability, but one wasn't given on last Tuesday night. The other item that came up, which may be coming to council at some point, but there's a native plant subcommittee that's also part of this group that is looking to ease some of the workload of code enforcement by providing a stamp or a sticker or a certification that your native plants in the area are not weeds, basically, in a sense. So it's actually very, very cool what they've done in such a short period of time. Obviously, they're going to keep noodling on this and potentially come to council with a recommendation. I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon, but I really enjoy the work that this committee has done on the subject. So that's it for sustainability. Anything else? If not, moving on to council members' choice. I have a couple of items if you guys wanted me to kick it off. One is actually, remember, Russell, you are the liaison to the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, right? So I wanted to bring this up just because I've been getting a question from a specific citizen on this, and I wanted to see if members of council would like to see if the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee wants to take this on. But basically, it's the issue of she classified it as volunteer trees. So basically, if there's a weed in the alley, code enforcement will, if it gets to a certain height, code enforcement will issue a citation for it. But they won't issue citations for trees. If they just happen to start growing past a certain point, code enforcement doesn't do anything. This resident feels, because she's experienced the negative impacts of them, that if we put in place a policy of cutting down volunteer tree, or the homeowner's responsible for cutting down a volunteer tree, it will lessen the impact that she has experienced in the past, but wants us to kind of look into that aspect of it. I don't have much information on it, but I did speak to City Manager Lewis about this, as well as the city attorney. We currently don't have anything in code that limits this. And the only ask that I have at this point is that I would like Code Enforcement Advisory Committee to look into the subject and provide a recommendation potentially on whether or not we need to look into it further. So, any questions on that item? Go ahead, Member Ward.
I'm wondering if that's a change in policy, because as someone who has frequently been visited by code enforcement regarding the alley that I never use and never go into, I have received a notice in the past regarding volunteer tree growth extending into the drive pathway in the alley, and been asked/told to remove or clean up those volunteer trees.
City Manager Ward. Councilmember Ward, I am not sure, but City Attorney Niles, I think we spoke about it. There's nothing in code that says something about volunteer trees. So whether it's a change in policy from code enforcement, I guess, is your ultimate question. But from a code perspective, we just don't have anything there, right?
Well, we do have provisions that you can't block an alleyway.
Okay.
So you couldn't allow something that would prevent travel through the alleyway. It was my understanding that the volunteer trees weren't in the middle of the alley,
Right.
but were along the alley.
Yeah, that's where mine were. They're going along the fence line, but they protruded, and the people who do use the alley or drive through it apparently were not happy that something was touching their car as they were driving through the alley. That was what I assumed was the basis for the note.
So I think in terms of what the scope of this volunteer tree, I think is one thing that we probably need to have Code Enforcement Advisory look into, but that's kind of where I'm asking. So, all right. Go ahead, Member Russell.
So my question is, did the citizen report it to code enforcement themselves?
Yes, and nothing was done because there's nothing in code that states, at least in that situation, that it violated code.
Okay, that's what she was told, or, I mean, my experience is that what Councilmember Ward said is correct. The citizen is responsible for the portion of the alley that is behind their property. I mean, really, probably even into the center of the alley, but if the trees are coming up and scratching people's cars, I think in the past that code enforcement has taken care of that.
Yeah, and I think that I think we probably need to get a little bit more details from code enforcement on why exactly they felt a citation wasn't warranted.
Okay.
I didn't dive too deep into this. I just asked.
Okay.
Yeah, just ask for more information on that. So.
All right. Thank you, and I'll get with the city attorney too, and then I can bring this up to the code enforcement committee, but probably we should, decide if we want.
Right. And maybe what we do is that maybe we just get enough information on this specific instance for you to bring to Code Enforcement Advisory, and then from there just decide whether or not it's warranted to even look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. The other thing is I do want to see if I could get consensus from City Council to have a study session on the issues that we've been hearing about from the neighbors within that surround 5280. What I would like to do is just, obviously, we've all been getting emails on it. I want us to just get a single conversation on the impacts or the issues that they've experienced, what has been reported to the police department, and also just get an idea of what other cities have done to mitigate some of the issues. And I think this is just us to get on the same page about what's happening. I think we've also been giving directions to staff that maybe wasn't basically it was different voices giving different directions to council, to staff. And I think to make it easier for staff in our police department, I think I want to have a discussion on what the issues are, what we can possibly do about it, potentially, but just start with the conversation at this point. And I just wanted to see from council if you guys were open to having that as a study session item. Go ahead, Member Pring.
I'd be on board with that conversation so long as we can be protective of the neighbors who have brought concerns forward and not vilify them within the conversation.
I agree. I think just the facts of the case and not use names or anything along those matters. I agree with that. Member Russell?
I think it might be wise for us to get input from the city attorney before we decide to do anything.
City Attorney Niles, do you have anything to add?
So I've been researching this for quite some time and have provided some reports to council, some different options. Where we were from staff's perspective is we received conflicting positions and direction from council members. Normally when we receive through a one-on-one or a legal report, if I receive a majority direction from council, we would like to explore this. That's when I would bring a proposed ordinance or perhaps discussion during study session. But we've never received a majority direction as to whether we want to take any action. And so that's where we are. Really, staff doesn't know what council would like to do. So I talked to the mayor today that potentially we could consider a study session where city manager's office discusses some citizen contact that they've received, and then police contact in the area. And I could discuss potential legal options city council could take to address some of those concerns. But right now we're just in a holding pattern because we haven't received any majority direction. So we're not sure what council wants.
Member Ward?
I think we're overdue for a discussion on this matter, but my question is, this is a sensitive topic in the community involving the potential for legal action on any number of sides. And we are going to be asking our attorney for legal advice. So rather than this being a policy discussion that needs to take place in an open door meeting, I'm wondering if this is a more appropriate discussion to have in executive session.
Well, originally I wasn't looking at it as legal advice. I was looking at it more as a facts on the ground and a discussion. But I see where you're coming from in terms of potential legal action, if we are getting legal advice on it. So I would be open to that if that's the direction that we believe that conversation will go. So I would be open to that.
City Attorney, do you think that is an appropriate topic for executive session?
Of course, legal advice is always an appropriate topic for executive session. I would just ask that I receive some direction as to what legal advice you want to receive, or what legal evaluation you would like to have. And that doesn't have to be in an open discussion either. That's something that you and I perhaps could discuss privately because it is attorney-client privilege.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Member Wright.
I would like to be part of that discussion also, because I think there might be different opinions and different emails that have gone through. I was thinking this as Member Ward, because I think that, like Member Prang said, I think that we need to be sensitive to all parties that are being discussed. There are three sides to every story. You know, what did they say? Is hers and the truth, or something like that? I think very sensitive to all of that. I think that possibly an executive session would be warranted, especially don't think all parties would want emails and other things that have been discussed or sent to us, discussed in public, just for everybody's privacy and legal matters. I think that would be best, actually.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
All right, anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem, is your light on about this, or okay? Anyone else on this? It sounds like there may need to be a conversation first between city attorney and member Ward, and then potentially member Wright as well, before a final decision on whether or not this comes in front of executive session or study session. Is that fair, the way that I'm reading it? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I just had something Councilmember Russell said earlier just spurred a thought for a council request, and that would be, is our sewer system near failure? And what did a staff member say about the sewer system being inadequate in an area of the city relative to the PUD, and what do they mean by that?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else for council member's choice? All right, city manager's report.
No report, Mayor.
All right, with that, everyone, we are now adjourned. See you all next Monday night. Do we have to announce that there's an executive session? No, because it's going to be on this item.
No,
Okay.
it's already a regular meeting, so we
Yep.
don't have to announce it. The only time we would have to pre-announce it is if we were designating a
Yeah.
study session as a special meeting for executive session.
That works. All right, everyone, have a great evening.